Yeah, it was, Aka. What stood out for you? We'll just wait for a couple more people because I know there's supposed to be about 30 in this room. All right, we're up to 24. Ah, yeah, the discipline, the checklist, right. Yeah, I mean, it's not supposed to just go straight to winning, is it? Good morning, Paula. All right. Paula, how's the Spanish room? Are we all set there? Is everybody ready? Absolutely, Aka. Or you just take the same trades as Claudio and then you're already there, right? Just Claudio today? All right. There's 26. I know that there was a guy, Dean. His name is Dan Gibby, and I used to hear that like he would sit next to another trader who lost so much that he would just do exactly whatever that trader was doing. He'd just take exactly the opposite action. He said he did very well with that apparently. So it's an interesting way to do it, right? Wouldn't that be interesting? Like, if you could like find the worst traders in the whole program and just set your computer system to do exactly the opposite. Wouldn't that be amazing? Like if you could just do that. I actually know of a person who did something like that with himself and basically made an account and had a second account and just took the opposite, like would buy and sell at the same time and do the exact opposites at the same time, and then report the big successes or failures every single well, just report success every day, but like basically you didn't know which account it was from. So just crazy things happen. All right, we're gonna get started here. That doesn't take you to graduation though, now does it? That's just being nuts. So all right, we're gonna go into the second part of the checklist, and let's see, that's what we got right here. Checklist part 2. We'll do our trade reviews, our journals, right? And then Tony's got some stuff. And yeah, we got a fun one today, but we got to push through because we got to get to the second side of the checklist. That's everything on the right side of the printout that you guys have. And we're going to start with ads, how to add to your position. Now, an ad needs to come on the pullback, right? There are two places where you add, right? The first red or green bar ignored and the first pullback. And it's mandatory. You have to take it. The first one, you have to take it. And we're going to talk about well, first of all, what's a healthy pullback, right? It needs to be after a leg. It needs to have a series of pushes, right? So that needs to happen first, right? The correction should be not more than 50 to 65%, right? A nice pullback on, let's say we have a nice move up. Boom. Boom. And a good one is going to be like this, right? Boom. Boom. And then, we continue here, right? Here's the top. Here's the bottom. Draw in the 50%. That's a healthy one, right? 3 to 8 bars. You don't want big bars with the wrong color. So you don't want to have your your pushes like this, and then your pullback starts like that. That's a problem, isn't it? Although there are still circumstances under which it's not a problem. It's just that, it needs to remain in the top 50%, and it needs to have time in this direction before it continues, right? When you get that first, anything that just pops up into that area in the next few bars is just going to get hammered, right? Because it sends its power to the right. So we don't like to add to our position right next to this bar. So maybe we wait, right? And we do the add after time, right? That's a different kind of thing. So we wait for the price to move away from that big bar before adding. And so when you have, right, your pullback starts with some ugly bar, away can mean two things. It can mean even further down here, and you do the add because it's away vertically, or what you get is bars that go this way, right? And then it starts to move up, and you get away horizontally. So away is either vertically or horizontally, but it's not right next to this red bar. Very important thing. You guys need to write that down. In a pullback, it needs to be away. Either way, it represents time, doesn't it? And when it comes way down here, then maybe you get some massive green bar that starts things up again. You don't know. But it needs to be in the top half. It needs to be not next to one of these big ugly bars. 3 to 8 bars. I prefer 3 to 5. I really don't like 8 is where something just tends to be wrong. But that's my experience talking. So that's the concept, right? We understand what a pullback is. You get a series of legs. You get 3 to 5, maybe 8 bars back. We prefer it not to have any, really ugly bars, and we're not going to add right next to an ugly bar, right? You got that, right? It's just not a good policy to start adding next to the ugliest bar on the chart. And we give it a little time if we have to, right? So your ads, mandatory ads, right? Mandatory. First RBI, GBI, and the first pullback. You will, after you've taken profits a number of times and you get back down to a small number of units, you might, if you're in a nice channel trend, you might be able to hit multiple. Here's your first ad, took profits again. Okay, I'll put one back on. Take profits again. Oh, it pulled back again. Add here, and then, you can do that. But you need to make sure when you start getting into the second, third, fourth pivot, right, now you're just, I hope you're really, really profitable by that time. And then Claudio has shown us a few of those actually, where he just keeps adding, but never misses the profit take, because you miss one profit take and this whole thing falls apart. You start getting in too big, right? Because this concept of adding needs to fit your risk parameters. And the only thing that makes this not mandatory is when you have like your initial stop, and you add here, and you add here, and now your MLPT, right? If adding here makes your MLPT be above this, your initial stop, you can't do that add. Does that make sense? If this becomes your MLPT and this was your initial stop, you cannot do that add. So you have to do your ads, and it is going to increase your risk, but it cannot be beyond max loss per trade. I don't want to see journals where you added here and then you stopped here, even though we haven't moved our stop yet. but you stopped here because you increased your max loss per trade. You can't do that. Does this make sense? Please let me know if there's anybody who doesn't understand this. You can't do an ad if it's going to bring your max loss per trade above your technical stop. Your max loss per trade always has to be below whatever the current technical stop is. Right? Now let's say here's your technical stop, you're in here, you added here, you go, I can't afford to add on this one, so you miss it, and then you take profits up here, and now the stop moves up. You know, maybe a pullback to a moving average, you know, you could still add on that right here. You know, if it's going up, you could still add right here, as long as this doesn't put your trade in max loss per trade, right? It just, you just have to be wise about it. So as long as we got that concept, you know, we can move forward, right? It's not hard, right? I want to make sure you don't have any questions about that, and you're going to see it in the journals, of course. And anything missed there? You have to add on the first, and you have to do both. The first RBI, GBI, and the first pullback are mandatory adds. And the only thing that stops you is bringing your max loss per trade. So Gurmeet is asking, once you've taken profit, can you add considering the profit while calculating? Yeah. So that's where, you know, you've got to figure out, do you want to let this trade go negative, or would it bring it, you know, you need, I'm going to say this, Gurmeet, your max loss per trade is still your max loss per trade, meaning the whole trade is negative X. But when you take a profit and then you're pulling back and you're going to add again, you need to figure out how much risk you can tolerate, right? Are you going to take a winning trade and turn it into a loser? Patrick's asking about hidden RBI, GBI. Are they mandatory? Let's just, I think those are more optional. Let's call that an option, Patrick. Because it's not, the odds are not as good necessarily, right? So if all you get is a little wick and a pullback into a red bar, I don't think that's exactly what we're talking about. Let's just call it actual color right now. But if you choose to make a hidden RBI, GBI part of it, that is a choice you're allowed. You're allowed to say, this is where I added. If you do that, though, be aware of how it's affected your risk, right? So you may do, I'm going to say, I believe that this is really about elimination of color. But if you add a hidden one, just make sure that you mark that that's what you did in your journal, so we can see it, right? So I'm just going to say that can be a little more optional, because I see people do it all the time and actually get some really great additions there, right? So Vladimir's saying, can we take the first RBI, GBI if they're already away from the 20 MA? So I'm going to give you this. Here's your 20. What needs to precede an RBI, GBI? What needs to come before it? A power bar. Boom. So if the power bar opens at or near the 20, then that is a definite yes, must take it. If we're here, you know, we've had some moves up, And this power bar opens already away from it. That is not. If we have a red bar ignored right here, we do not take this one. Is that clear? And that is written on your checklist. So right where it says add, you look to the you look at RBI, GBI, and it says not far from the 20. Really, specifically, it's this power bar that cannot open and begin already lifted off from the 20. Good. Yeah, that's an important distinction. We want to keep you out of the bad ones, right? Now, profit takes is the next section, right? So here there's, and so like section 6 is profit takes. Sometimes those happen before your ad, sometimes they happen afterwards, right? Because sometimes you get in on a bull elephant bar and it makes 3 pushes and you're already taking profits. But we're going to do the concept of the whale, right? Right? Take profits on new highs or new lows. And then, so this is where we have to, you know, you get your first bar of the day. Let's say you get a bear elephant bar, right? And you enter below the low. We get 1 push, 2 push. This is the 3rd push. You now have permission to take profits here. And you may, if it forms clear, you may say, no, this has more bars to go. And you can say, I'm not going to take profits here because it's still going. But there's, and you're going to learn to recognize the ones that are like, you know, this is just going to go a few more bars, and you'll just say, no, now it's done, and you just take some at bar number 5 or 6 or something. But in the beginning, just make it a rule. Every time I get to that 3rd push, I'm going to take half off, right? Marilyn's saying, does an entry on a move have to be made using the 2-minute chart? Personally, I like the 1-minute chart. Marilyn, get rid of the 1-minute chart. We're using the 2. I'm just going to say that. Just forget about the 1. I know you may like it, but let's all work on the same channel right now, because it's not, you know, 3 pushes on the 1-minute chart could be like, you know, that's like 1.5 bars on the 2-minute chart, right? You're going to make 10 cents instead of 30, or you'll make 40 cents instead of 80, right? It's not like, because then you have to trail, and this is the important part, you have to trail and profit take and all that on the same time frame that you entered on. Now, Oliver says the 5-minute is the hands down the best one out there. But he says if I have you guys play on the 5-minute, you won't take enough trades to get enough practice. On the other hand, the 1-minute just has too much noise. You know, like Tony's saying, it's too much whipping around. And like I said, you need to wait for like 6 pushes on the 1-minute chart, and that's going to be, you know, for it to be reasonable. You won't stay in it long enough. You see what I'm saying? When you know, the purpose of the checklist is to give you guys the ability to stay in for dollar moves, not pennies, right? You want to be in there for dollars. And on the 1-minute chart, you're going to be out, you know, 30, 40 cents. And you're going to be missing the dollars. So does that answer your question, Marilyn? There's good reason behind it, just to get you practicing and to get everyone practicing the same thing. Now we're going to talk about what the pushes are, and so take some initial profits after 2 or 3 pushes, and then you also, like, now when you get to whale complete, this is the most important one. Oliver never wants you to miss taking a whale completes profit, ever, right? Now, if the bar that makes a new high is just solid, he's going to say you need to wait at least one more bar and take it above, like somewhere in here. If it closes at the top, Oliver's going to say it's the next one. When you get that kind of clarity, there's 80, 90% there's going to be more. And that's just going to skyrocket your gains. But if there's any question, like if the new high bar, like we're getting into the new high, it starts getting up here, and then it starts dropping, and it's dropping back down, yeah, you got to take that. You got to nail that. And even if it drops down and it starts heading in this direction, got to take it. Got to just take some off. Can't miss that, right? So if it gets back down through the open, like it goes up here to the top, and then it starts going down through the opening price, you've got to nail it. You got to be selfish right there. Even if the next thing it does is it comes back a little and it takes off to the new high. Don't miss the new high. Because how many times is it going to do a little drop and then go to the new high? Well, I think more often than not, if it starts falling, it's going to fall much harder. And why is that? Why is it that this has to be a profit take area? I mean, what else could be happening there, right? If the first high is a TT, do we include the tail? Yeah. Yeah, include the tail. Include the actual high. Yeah, the trend could, this is where everybody's placing their sell orders in this prior area of selling, right? So this could be where your market law 4 begins, right? So if it's going to skyrocket through there, you just want to make sure that, that you're in it if it's going that way. But if there's any hesitation, any doubt, and it starts cracking back down through the lows, yeah, you need to have some off, right? So is that clear? And you'll notice the ones, if it's climbing with nice solid bars, it opens, goes higher, right? It opens, goes higher. It opens and goes high. Like if it's doing that, that's the one you want to stay in, because this one where it gets crazy, that's where you have to get some out up in here, right? But if it's grinding and it's kind of making a bar like this, and then it kind of has one of these, and then it kind of gets big here, and then it starts pulling back and heading that way, you gotta be taken out. And you're going to notice the difference, right? You take enough of these, when it starts pushing to the new high, you're going to know when it's flipping on you. Gurmeet, no. And the reason you cannot do that is now, so what Gurmeet I think is saying is, like, if you take some off here and it starts pulling back and it starts going again, just put it right back on. What are you going to do when it starts going down again? Like, now you're going to sell again? I'm like, this is where you start getting into like a million entries and exits. And then what happens? Maybe again it starts going up. Are you going to add again? And then what if it goes down again? You're going to like, see the trouble that can happen? Your job is to get out of the way. It's a new high, take some. Not all, take some. You take half here, right? If you have 3 lots, maybe take 2. Look for a pullback. Maybe you can add on the next pullback. And when this gets to a new high here, stop adjust. We'll get to stop adjust in a second. But you see how what you're asking is just how your ego gets in the way and tries to like add stuff there. It's really you just trying to like, over time you just want to be able to like hit those and take it and see what happens. And you're gonna like catch the actual top or the actual bottom a number of times, and then you're gonna go, oh, this is what's really cool. So do we add the RBI only on the first leg, or can we add in subsequent legs? You can add in subsequent legs, but pay attention to the quality of the trend that you're in. This is where you get a little more choice. And I'm going to tell you this, just don't let it ruin your trade. What I would prefer you did after you've played your first RBI, GBI, and your first pullback is just learn how to let the play trail out. Because all this adding is you just trying to get in big. And when you get in big, you're not going to be able to trail the rest out. Like, if I get an elephant bar, and here's the fabulous 4 down here, right? And it starts moving and doing whatever it's going to do for the day. And I want to sit through all this stuff. Is it easier to sit through this with 1 lot or 4 lots? It is, isn't it? 1 lot. So the reason that I'm saying not to add here and then add another one here and another one here, and then it goes down and you freak out and you close everything, and then it goes up and you go back in, you see what happens? By the time this gets up here, let's say you actually survive and it gets up here. Your P&L from just buying 1 lot here and leaving it alone is going to be better than all this extra messing around. So I want you to do whatever you think you're going to do, but keep in mind and track it. And the problem is, if you're going to do that, you may not track it, and then you're not going to benefit from it. But if you do that, always compare the result, whatever your end P&L. Let's say you actually make it up here. Go back and compare it to, like, what if I just take 1 small entry and did nothing? And when you start to find out that one lot entry did better than all the messing around, you're going to learn some things, right? That's what I'm saying, So does that make sense? Like that, when Oliver says getting out of the way, that's what he's talking about. You're the one that's getting in there and messing up all the, a lot of times things will do much better if you're not there. Like the number of times that, like, if I'd have just entered and walked away and came back at like 3:30 p.m., I'd have been better off. Like, I mean, do you guys have charts like that? This is what would have happened if I did nothing and just came back at the end of the day. It's pretty amazing, right? So it'll tell you things about, when that does better than you. So when we are entering a trade, we are here for the whale. We are not here for 3 pushes. We are here to survive the first pullback and get to here. We're not here to take an entry, get our 1, 2, 3 pushes, and close for the day. That's not our purpose. All we're doing that for, like it says here, is it's kind of ridiculous if we have 2 lots to not take some here, right? Isn't it kind of ridiculous when we get liftoff from the moving averages to not take some? So you have to take some. You have to sit through the pullback, and you need to wait for the new high, right? And sometimes you won't get it, right? There are different kinds of whales. So a whale has these parts, right? The first leg, the pullback, and then the new high. And you only take initial profits if you have 2 to 3 pushes and at least 30 cents. We're saying a minimum 30 cents because some people will get 3 tiny little pushes. They'll get like 3 bars like this, and they're taking profits. And I'm like, yay, I made 10 cents. And I'm like, no, this is not 3 pushes. It needs to be something that's worth it, right? If your stock moves $1 in the day, you want to make at least 30 cents. It moves $1.50, anything like that. Now, Oliver hates it when people just go 30 cents, I took profits. No, that is not based on the chart. That's based on you just being scared. That's scared profit taking. That's being scared. Like, you hear people talk about how we're like wired backwards for this. Like, we're greedy when we should be fearful, and we're fearful when we should be greedy. It's like it's going in your favor. Now I'm terrified. I see 30 cents. Okay, I'm out. That's being fearful when you should be hanging in there. And then when it's going against you, you're like, nah, this is going to come back. And we get greedy when we're like, we're just losing. Like, it's telling you, we're expecting this ridiculous thing that should not happen. And we're doing it wrong. Right? Now, there are wise ways to do this. For example, not all pullbacks, like, this is the whale complete we want in a healthy trend, right? What if your pullback is this? We're going up, and our pullback is a nosedive like this, right? And our stop's way down here. Well, it starts with an ugly bar, and we can't add near the ugly bar. And then it kind of exhausts right here, very close to our max loss per trade, but then we get a reversal, right? Is whale complete going to be up here when our pullback looks like this? No, it's not. When you get a massive violent move down, where's the most likely whale complete? Like, what's the most probable pullback is likely here, right? So we can still add, mandatory add, but now our purpose is to exit the trade as close to break even as possible. And this is how you can take something that's falling out of the sky against you, use an add properly, not next to a violent bar. We don't do it that way, but we use an add, right, to get us back to break even. And this is what we're going to call whale complete, because the odds have changed. Sometimes the pullback is going to be so ugly, right, that the best we can expect is, if you get a little thing here, is a 30% or 25% pullback before this goes down again, right? Does that make sense? And you're gonna learn to see that, right? That it just, like, there are times where the only thing you could get is, is 25% or 33%, something like that. I did that with Apple today, actually. So let's see. Went to Apple. I did a counter trend trade right here. I did a short. I almost stopped it right here. My target was right about here, right? But that's counter trend. That's a scalp. I added huge right here. I was able to get some out, break even. I took some, and then I got the profit down in this zone, right? Why? Because this is where that when things are going against you, like, that's what you can do, But this is not a good example, because I'm just showing you this to see how far something might pull back when you've got massive power. I mean, this is going against massive power, right? This is huge power. So how far? I mean, and I actually, when I got into this, up into this little tail, this is where my profit take order was. It just missed it by a penny, and then it shot off, and I was going to give this a 2-bar stop, because I wasn't in that big. And then it started to fall. I said, all right, I'll hammer it right here and expect it to get, into here where I got those ads off, right? Because that's where my average price was. And then I was able to get some in here. But you see how the odds are not even 50% on this one, right? 50% is still kind of, by the time I got here, above the 20, right? So that's not likely, is it? So, that's just playing against everything, though. And, that's a scalp. It's a kind of a dangerous thing to be messing around with. So just for the purpose of whales, that's what you need to understand is they don't all go, 50% pullback new high. Sometimes it's a nosedive. And when it's a nosedive, you gauge what is a reasonable place for this to end up. That you would say, well, 7 times out of 10, it would get at least this far. And you go, if I add and not next to an ugly bar, can I get out of this trade? Because it changes the trade, right? Now, that is not on your checklist. Your checklist is going to say, just ride it out. And you know what? That's what you're supposed to do right now, is ride it out. You're really supposed to let it go. I mean, listen to what Oliver just said. He was talking about you getting out of the way and just let this thing happen. And, even though it may not make money for you in the beginning, you're going to learn to see these things. And we're going to help point them out in the journals. And over time, now some things are going to become yours, like the ability to, that's what we do on the black team is we work on how to get out of trades that aren't working, break even or better, or how to really flip them and turn them into profitable trades, right? That's another level up, but you can't get there until you've got taking these losses correctly. So here we go. 2 to 3 push rule, right? You enter down here. Push 1, right? A push is this. Here's like a zone of like other bars, right? These 2 bars here, this one and this one. A push is something that just drives through that space above any other mess over here, right? So we have some mess of a bunch of bars. This is a clearing with an open and a close that is just clearly a sizable move. Not a tiny bar move either, right? This is a tiny bar move right here. This one is a push, right? The other thing that is not a push is this. Why is this not a push? This one is a push. Why is this one not a push? Yes, it's already counted. It's already inside this range. It's inside the range of other bars, right? It's not a push if it's living inside the range of other bars, recent bars, right? This one is a push, right? And this clearing bar, that's your third push. Clear, right? Not a big deal. So this is one you have the right to take profits on and should be taking profits on, because you look at this. It has moved away, right? You're in a nice zone right there. So here we go, right? Enter long. Profit take 1 on the third push, right? Now, your first push can happen inside the range right after your entry. Notice how this push 1 is already inside the bar you entered on. Do you get that? You can enter and then it goes, 20 cents higher from where you entered, and that's already your first push. This one does not count. That's a neutral tiny bar. This is push 2, a nice solid bar. This is push 3. Now let me ask you this. If we get push 1 is clear, push 2 is clear, and push 3 turns into like one of these topping tails, are you still able to take profits there, yes or no? I'm messing with you guys here just in case. Yes. So you would want to get that before it completes as a topping tail. You would want to get it anywhere up in here before it loses all its ground, right? So that's when you've got to say, "Oops, I'm in third push territory. I gotta get some out here," right? Now Andrew's asking if the push is really big, like the new high. Can we consider it as 2 bars? Yes. For example, this is 2 pushes, right? Can you guys see that? This bar is 2 pushes. Boy, I'm not drawing so good here. That's 2 pushes, maybe even 3, right? It's also your whale complete bar. So even though I said, like, when it closes at the high, you have to wait for the next bar. When that bar that goes through is like 2 or 3 pushes, I don't think anyone's going to fault you for taking some off in that bar. If it's like a 1 clear push and it closes at the top, then I would say next bar. You have to take some at the next bar. But if it's just gigantic, take some if it's gigantic, right? Now here's the pullback, right? We all see that, 3 to 5 bars. We take out red, we add here, and then we take some profits in here, right? Whale complete. Is that correct? Right? You guys see that? Entry, 3 pushes, profit take, add when green takes out red, right here. Whale complete, and then we trail out, in this case, like a bar by bar or something. And we'll talk about trailing out. Right? Does this make sense to people? You could also do a narrow bar entry here if you wanted to, but it's not as potent. I think we had a question about that last class. Yes. So, you have to, it's not can you must, right? You've already taken profits. So adding here is not going to affect your max loss per trade, is it? It's not going to put this up below a technical stop or anything. It's not going to do anything like that. So adding here should not be a problem. Profit take. And now that we're at a new high, now the stop will come up to the pivot low, which we'll talk about here in a couple minutes. That's the most important part of this. So for you new people, is this helpful? Do you see what... Yeah, Lawrence, he says not to take profits on big bars. I'm just saying this one's gigantic. This one, this one explodes, So, this is a nice big bar right here, right? That's a nice big bar. But this is like ridiculous, right? If like you've had some big bars and then you have some smaller bar pullback, and then the biggest bar in the chart forms, you might be careful. Notice how this next bar involved a lot of selling, right? Like after this one, how much more buying do you think there's going to be, right? Everybody who bought here is profitable. Everybody who bought here, or everybody who added on this thing, like everybody on earth has exploded in profitability. What's going to happen next? Like imagine you came in and you turned on this chart and this is what you just saw. Is your instinct now, I got to buy now? Like, is that the first thing that you're going to do? I mean, I would hope you'd look at that and go, well, that's fun. I missed it, but that, right? No, this is at the point where nobody wants it anymore. That's different than like a clearing bar that's like saying, now we're off to the races. If this is a bar that says, okay, we had a pullback and we're clearing and now we're going off to the races, that's fine. But when you're getting into, like, is this igniting or exhausting? Even though it goes further, like when you look at this, what is it? Yeah. It's exhausting. I mean, things may go further when you see an exhausting bar, but not much, right? And then notice it's done for a long time, right? There can be a little steam at the end, right? This is like, like an old western where they shoot the gun and then there's some smoke kind of, wafting off here. um, but that it's not a lot more exciting after that, right? So the last part and the most important part of the checklist is your stop adjusts. If you could learn how to do only one thing, it would be just trail that out. If you could learn how to just enter on an event in a good location and stop adjust your way out, that'll be more important than all, because you guys are going to be all over the profit takes. You're going to get that stuff. You're going to get all the new highs. You're going to get all the 3 pushes. This part is where we get the scaredest. And that's why I don't want you to be building up 6 lots and then trying to figure out how to stop adjust, because then you're going to start making all these choices, right? I want it to be simple. Just make it easy on yourself. Do that with 1 lot. Let 1 lot, right, stop adjust. Now this is one of the first, you have to think of it, one of the first, let's say you enter with 2 lots. The first trade of the day, first buttons you push, one of those lots needs to have the right to sit through the whole move and stop adjust properly. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different ways that a play could stop out. We have to go through all of them. I only got 15 minutes to do that. It's probably going to be a little more than that, but it's very important. And how do we set up trailing stop to the 20 MA? You will never do that. That is not on your checklist. So there is no such thing as it broke the 20 MA. I'm done. But I am going to show you one of the things is power trend, but we'll get to that. First one, these are your 7. They're on your checklist. Let's get moving. Pivot, stop, adjusts, right? Here's your initial stop. Let's say here's your entry. Let's say you had an elephant bar. Got your pushes, you took some profits, you got an add right here. Boom. When does this stop move up here, right? Well, the answer is when price makes it 75% of the way up to the prior high. Now the stop can adjust to the pivot. Got that? Stock pulls back. Mandatory add, 75% of the way up. This can move. Why is that? Why does it have to make it 75% of the way up before we can bring this up here? What's the reasoning for that? Double dips, right. Usually it goes back, triggers a buy, right? Everybody jumps in, and then there's a second one, and this is the real one. The second one. And until you get up here, you don't know that this move down is over, right? Until it's made its way back up. It could be the first one, and until it gets back up in here, you don't know that it isn't going to just keep going, down, right? So you need to wait for it to turn around, right? We don't know when the pivot is done. It's complete when we've made a move back to the prior high. Understood? So we need to, this is the real patience. This is the hard part. This is that 1 lot. One of your first 2 lots here. You went in +2. But one of them is going to sit through here and through here and through here, and then somewhere it's going to stop out. You need one of these lots to be able to sit all day, and it has to be one of your first 2. I want you to think of it that way, not this one or some ad that you did in here or some ad up here. I want you to think of one of your very first lots needs to sit all the way through until a pivot is broken somewhere. Patrick's asking, so if our initial stop would be too much for that ad, would we have to skip that ad? The answer is yes. Right? So, well, Andrew, one of the one of your first lots needs to be the last one out. So this would be first in, first out, but one of your first two has to be first in, last out. So just one of them, one lot. You just gotta give that one a different name and just say this one's gonna sit all day. Just don't, and the reason I was harping on someone earlier is just don't murder this first lot that you want to sit all day. There's one over here, and there's one that's going to end up being taken out here, right? Don't destroy this guy's chances by doing all these funny ads and, getting in too big, and then, double dip happens and then it goes off, and like you end up stopping the whole play here because you added too much and you're freaking out about your P&L and all that kind of stuff, right? The checklist doesn't allow you to do that. But you will see your ego wants to get in here and add all this stuff, and this guy over here won't get a chance to make it up here if you mess around too much. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, how does a pivot break? Let's take a look at some examples here. All right, we entered. Boom, right here. Initial stop, because this is too big, right? That's ridiculous, so we can't go that far. Let's say we had an ad here, and once we get up to 75%, our stop moves up. You guys understand that, right? Now, maybe there's a profit take of the new high. Maybe there's an ad here, if you're crazy enough to go for it. And at 75% of the way up, the stop moves up again, right? And we move higher and we're 75%. Maybe we didn't do any more ads because we're getting late in the trend, but now the stop can come up to here after this 3-bar pullback because we got 75%. Now this is what you need to understand. This is how a pivot stop works. Pivots, you close the trade on a 2-bar break. Let's say your stop has moved up here. This break of the lows right here is a 1-bar break. If the low of this gets taken out, now it's over, right? That's a 2-bar break of the pivot low. You guys understand that? The stop's here. If we come over sideways, this is the first bar to break the low. That's not the one. If this green bar went down, that would be the one. And the reasoning is this. Oftentimes, they love to sneak just below your stop price before they make another leg, right? Okay, so to repeat it, once your stop has moved up here, the first bar to break below the lows is not your stop. It's the second bar. So if anything, so this bar broke the low right here. And if this green one went down and got even lower, then that would be the exit. That would be the exit. So this is the most important one, so I'm going to see if I can find an example from today or something. So AMD, let's see. So notice this, like, do I want to do this one? No, I don't. There's a good one. No, pivots are holding up here, so let me see if there's a good one. Well, I don't have any good ones from today. You got it, though? Yeah, things really kind of held up here, so let Well, I mean, let's just do it with this one, right? Let's say you added here. And at this point, we got 75% of the way to the new high, didn't we? So your stop comes across like this. And let's say this one just poked a penny below right here. But this is the one that took out the low. And this is the actual stop here. That makes sense? So one got 1 penny through and it's the next one. I could be wrong. I mean, it could be that this is the one that broke through and it's the next one that's the next one. Who knows? But like a 2-bar break is a little different. Oops, SQ. Oh, you mean over here? That's a 1-bar break, right? So interesting. Here's a nice 1-bar break, right? Over here, pivot stop comes to here. This is a 1-bar break. Are we still in this play? Yes or no? Are we still in that one? Yes, we are, right? So you see how this will keep you from getting shaken out? And if you're in so big that like this little tiny drop is making you shake in your boots, you're in way too big. You should just have one lot. And if you entered down here, why would you even care about this? Right? Why would you even care about that? A few pennies here or there, right? So just understand that, like you're trying to build up nerves of steel, not be chicken about it, right? So, so I hope that's clear. There's only two kinds of pivot stop. I mean, 2 kinds of stop adjust that use 2 bars, and the other one is power trend. So Gurmeet is asking, what if the next bar does not take it out, but the subsequent one? Then it's the subsequent one, right? So as soon as that lower low is made right here, anything below that is a hard stop. 1 penny below, you're done. So once we've broken through by 1 bar, right, here's our 1-bar break, anything below this is a hard stop. Does that make sense? Anything below this new low is a hard stop. It could happen an hour later. It doesn't matter. Anything that goes below there, we're out. Did you get that part, Gurmeet? Great. All right, moving on. All right. One quick exercise. This is an important one. Assuming we're long over here, as we move over, at what point do we go from here to here? I'm going to move my, I'm going to draw as we go to the right and just tell me type of 1 the second I get to the point where that, right? Type of 1 the second you see a place where that stop can move up. All right, you guys are starting to get it now. Yeah. It actually, I would say here, we've got 75% of the way up, right? So now the stop can come here, right? Actually, even here, right? This one was actually sooner than you would think, right? It dipped pretty hard, but like right about here, you would say this should not get down below everything, I think. You may say that this is not a pullback yet, which there'd be some truth. So if we get over here and now this starts charging, I would say this. Now, what about when we go this way? At what point do we move this to here, right? At what point? So as I draw this line, at what point do I move the stop up to that next place? Now we're getting it, right? Up in here, now we're 75%, and now the stop comes up to this mess. You see how much time we had to sit through? I mean, this could have gone even lower before going back up. You just don't know, but until it starts pushing away, you have to let this just drizzle. And so that's why, like, let's say you never took profits here. Let's say you missed it and you watch this drizzling. Are you shaking in your boots now because you missed that profit take? I mean, I'm gonna argue yes, because you missed a very important profit take, and now you're watching your profits, drizzle up, right? Not taking profits is a mistake, and it's a big one because it makes it harder to just sit through the pullback. You see the brilliance in how all this was put together? Missing any step on this checklist is going to ruin your day, right? It's gonna cause your ego to jump in there and go nuts, and you've got to prevent that. And so you're going to go through that process, right? And here we go. You sit through a double dip and you stay in the play, right? So that's pivot stops. That's kind of the hardest one, because it's, you really have to wait for those pushes away, and they may come a long time from now, and it's a two bar stop, right? So let's move along, right? Big bar stop adjusts. Now, when do we use a big bar? When do we use a big bar stop adjust? This happens when you've got some stuff that's just kind of grinding around, and then you've just got this liftoff that is this clearing liftoff, and it creates this support zone, right? It creates a shadow that, like, you look at it, this is clearly the biggest bar in the chart, and you're just saying, if anything were to take this out, it would have to be the end of the momentum. Like, it's a bar that's so clear and so different than everything else that you would go, if this bar was ever erased, this move must be over, right? And I say that because people put in a lot of big bar stop adjusts that I kind of feel like is not giving enough room for the play. I don't think this is so much for fluid moves. And the reason I say that is, when you're getting a fluid move, what other stop adjust is the same as a big bar stop adjust that you might as well be using once you get far away from the 20 and so forth. You might as well call. Yeah. Well, so, like, and we'll see examples, but it's like, this is really for this kind of clearing stuff that happens near the 20 or whatever. That's a thing that should never be taken out. But if you're up like 15 bars and then you get some giant bar, I think you're going to bar by bar, and maybe you're even trailing out half or a third of a giant bar. But that's different because it's in the context of multiple bars all moving together, and now big bar stop adjust is like, well, here's the thing, this could pull back. You want the stop adjust to represent the end of the trend, the end of the movement. And a big bar after 15 bars up is not necessarily the end of the trend, right? But when you get this kind of grinding action and you get some giant bar that's just like, okay, that's a clear statement, and you go, if this were to get below here, there's no more trend, right? That's when you gotta use that. And that's a 1 penny below, right? Or 1 penny above, right? 1 bar break, done, right? Is that clear? So that's your second one. And we'll see an example here. Like, see this? It's kind of grinding around. As we get a push off here, big bar stop adjust. As we get a push off here, big bar stop adjust. And then eventually you could bar by bar out of this. But you see how there's a few bars, this one and this one, that are not like the others. And you can move your stop there. And it would be a little different than a bar by bar situation. And like, for example, you could let this pull back into this bar and continue, and that's totally fine, right? So that's what I want you to kind of catch there. These are bars that should not be erased, right? And they're in the whale complete zone. So, the stops are kind of adjusted. When you're in whale complete, taking out of these kind of solid, clear things that are away from the moving average could be the end of the move. And when they start accelerating away, what I was saying is that becomes more of a bar by bar stop. So color stop adjusts. Now this is the RBI GBI stop adjust, right? Starts with the power bar. Here's a color move, right? Once we get a push off away from that color, and we're in a very fluid move, right? We got lift off from our moving average. Then the stop can be adjusted to color. And this is when we start getting into, angle and distance away from the moving average, right? So notice the context in this drawing is that we've already had a power move. And now we've got color, and now we've got even more acceleration away, and in more acceleration away. Now it's ridiculous to have it come back here, isn't it? So once we get a fair push away from that bar, and I would even say just above it, like when we get into the second we are in the second push, which is in this bar here, the stop comes up to color. Does that make sense? That's when you adjust it. Now, sometimes this bar is 2 pushes. And when that becomes a 2 push size bar, you may stop adjust to color. Right? Now, there are other things that can, but for now, that's just the color stop adjust. We don't use that very often. So I'm going to move on from this one unless you have any other questions. Okay, left side after entry. If you get a big bar prior to profit taking, can you adjust? Yeah. I think if you're before profit taking, no. I think the answer is no. You want to start stop adjusting after. We're trying to get to whale complete, right? So what you're asking there, Ali, is that you're just trying to quit the trade soon. That's you getting in there saying, I just want to take my profits and run. Will you ever catch the big monsters if you're thinking that way? You'll catch the first move. You'll get a lot of, okay, great. I got, here's a nice big bar, right? And you're going to end up what? Stopping here. Then this is going to do this. Then it might go sideways. And then you will never get here, will you? It will never get to this point because you got out here, right? Does that make sense? If I understood what you wrote there. Okay. Yeah, your job is to make it through that pullback. So, and to get your ego, get your demand for results out of there, because the stock doesn't care what you think should happen, right? This one may not be the one, but you want to be around for the one when it is the right one. And you're not going to be around if you make a policy that says, I'm just going to bail every time I see X or Y. So that's the thing. We're trying to take your choices out of it with this checklist. So here's one, right? Boom. The color has 2 criteria. The price needs to lift off the moving averages, right? So here's the lift off. Here's your color. And now we get another lift off, right? And on the second lift off, now the stop moves up. Does that make sense? So up in here, we can say, well, it shouldn't get below here again. And by now you're in pretty good profitable territory, but this is late in a trend and it's moving right along, and you can just say, look, it would be absurd to let it come all the way back down here once we're up here, right? See, having a preceding leg like this and a pause and then this, where are we actually? What do we call this? You have a preceding leg, a pause, and then a new high. Right. So when you're in a whale complete zone, you're not going to let it come back down here, right? That's what this is saying. That's what you're using this for. So one kind of a whale that I didn't draw before is this. A power move, a small pause, and then a new high, right? It doesn't look like this. It looks like this. It's still a whale. So it's two legs, right? So we got one, and then we got two, right? Two legs. That's it, right? This is also one leg and two legs, right? It just happens that we have this pullback in the middle. So when you're getting into whale complete, you are not going to give back the zone that you pushed out of, right? It's the same as this, isn't it? Once you get to new highs, you're definitely not going to let it come back here. So aren't we doing the same thing, right? Once we get up in here, we're not going to get back here. It's the same place in the whale, so to speak. It's just that the pullback wasn't the same. So I hope that helps. I want to get on to the next one here. Bar by bar. There's a lot of confusion this one. This one you use only after price moves away from the 20. It needs to create an angle and distance from the 20, right? So here's the 20 MA. Here's your price action, and now something starts to move up, gives you angle and distance. Now we're getting way up there. We're getting way, way up there, and now we're starting to trail bar by bar, right? Next one, and next one. And then, boom, something goes through, and we stop the trade here. And that's when we have moved to Pluto, right? And look, you can, like if you get in something right at the open of the day and it goes 150% the average true range and gives you a bar by bar thing, yeah, trail it out bar by bar on your last lot. Because it's moved ridiculously beyond what it should do, right? Like that Apple trade I showed you. Although I would argue that people should still sit through a pullback on that. Like if we go to Apple at the beginning of the day, I mean, this is nuts. And look, still the pullback survived and made a new high. Isn't that crazy? But if you exited the whole trade right here, there is nothing wrong with that. Because this is kind of a first pullback, new high, bar by bar, angle and distance here, right? Like if you exited the whole trade right here, nobody's going to fault you because that's Pluto land, right? And by all rights, this, should have made a pretty aggressive pullback. It didn't do that, but the checklist would keep you in this one, wouldn't it? Technically this is not enough bars, is it, to be a pullback? This is the pullback. This is the mandatory add, even though it's near a pretty violent move down. And once we get up here, you adjust the stop. And then we get another pullback. And everything inside you wants to just bail out of this trade. And yet, once we get up here, the stop moves up here. And once we get into new highs, we can take some profits. That's great. And once we see this, we go, oh my God, I should get out. But guess what? The checklist says nope. And you sit through it and it keeps going. And we get up to about here and you go, well, now I can move this stop up. You see how much this goes against everything you want to do? And then this comes all the way over here, and I don't know if it takes it out or not. But look, it still doesn't stop out. It still doesn't stop out and takes you to a new high. It's crazy, right? You see how the checklist keeps you in there longer than you can possibly imagine? Marilyn, it will, yes, it has to. I have to say they don't really like that. They don't like, it does send a message to them every time you don't exit your trade. So, you know, I don't know if there's a way to set that up to close it for you, but it'd be an interesting thing if you just, I get where you're going. Wouldn't it be interesting if you could just say, I like this position. I'd love to just set a stop, walk away, and see what's there at the end of the day, right? But that's kind of sticking your head in the sand too. That's you not learning how to like be there for it and sit through it, which is what you have to be able to do. Now, here we go. Grinding up all day long, and then finally at the end of the day, we get some lift off pushes. Here's your bar by bar stop. Notice the angle and distance, right? Can you see that the angle was like this? And now the angle is like this. Angle and the distance increased, right? That's when you can go bar by bar. And like this is a good example because this is late in the move, late in the day. You know, you don't want it to be your first bunch of pushes. You want some real move away, you know. So let's see. No, you don't, that's not how you get out of, Gurmeet, that's not how you get out of the whole trade. Yes, one part needs to go by one of these stop adjusts. And it can be bar by bar if this is like late in the move. Like it's really had, you know, I prefer that you've had at least one pivot. I will say this. Even if it goes to Pluto, if it hasn't made one pullback, it's probably too soon. It's very, how often does something just make just straight bars and then end completely after that and just come straight down and fall out of the sky? I mean, how often do you get just bar, 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 bar? Like, how often does it do that? And I don't mean like just like 4 or 5 bars and then a reversal. I mean like massive, like 15 bars and then not even attempt a new high. Like, you know, Apple was a good example today, right? As powerful and like, oh my God, this is the end, it was. It still made a new high, and it still made another new high, and it still made another new high, and it still made another new high. But again, shaking in your boots right here, right? When you should be going, nah, if I just leave this alone. As a matter of fact, do this. When you get up here and you take some profits and you still got one lot left, draw a line at the 50% and say, I am going to stick my head in the sand for anything that happens above this line. Right? Here's the bottom. Here's the top. Anything that happens up in here, I don't care. I am not going to have any reaction to it. You can just make it 2 hours after that. A lot of times you'll be up here, right? There is a stop and reverse, and we'll talk about the stop and reverse. But we're not going to talk about that today because we're trying to get through real quickly here. I got to move along here. Bar by bar, and now we're on the ADMA. Do you guys understand the ADMA trail? The ADMA trail is this. Price gets moving, and rather than making pushes and bar by bar, it just kind of grinds. Salt and pepper, they call it, right? Red bar, green bar. Red bar, green bar. taily bar, green bar, blah, 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 blah. And it grinds and it's close and it just makes this kind of train tracks thing, right? This is the look of a power trend, right? The way a power trend ends is one bar breaks the moving average, and the next bar, after that one bar break, now you set a hard stop below the low of that bar, and anything that breaks it, that's the closing of the trade, 2 bars. A 1 bar break does not mean that it's over. And notice how this one makes a 1 bar break and keeps going. Here's another 1 bar break. Here's another 1 bar break. And this is the one that takes out of the low of the most recent 1 bar break right here. So this is the stop on this red bar right here. That's the breaking bar. This is the new low. You got that? Breaking bar. This is the stop. So you will see a million power trends in our journals, right? Just want to make sure you understand the concept so I can move on to, I believe, the last one, which is time stop. Questions on this? I know we take a lot of time on these kind of first days, but well, Lawrence is saying, Ovi talked about not stopping out on pokies, but in real time you don't know it's a pokey. You have to let the bar close, Lawrence. You have to wait for that 2 minutes to run out and the next bar to form, and then if it gets below there, now that's when you know, right here, right at the moment it takes out the low, that's when you stop it. Does that make sense? How do you confirm a power trend? Distance from the 8 period moving average, and let's give it 2 RBIs or 2 GBIs. 1, 2, they're both close to the 8 MA, and then we're going to continue, right? So just think of it that way. And I want to be clear, there are people that are taking some wacky things and calling that an 8 MA. It should be in a line like this. It shouldn't be like a zigzaggy. That is not an 8 MA trail. It should never look like that. It should just look like everything is in this channel, right? After your second, right, test of the 8 MA, you go, you know what? I think this is a power trend. And then you just see as it starts lifting off, then you go, yep, this is definitely a power trend. So this is where you start to suspect it, not the first one, the second one. This is where you start to suspect a power trend. And when it starts kind of continuing to grind after that, now you're like, yes, I'm going to trail the 8 MA, you know. That's how I would do it, you know. Does that make sense? You start getting multiple red bar. I mean, would you agree with that, Jan or Tony? Or like, you get a couple of these right here, and then as it starts to continue grinding, you go, you know what? I think that's what we got. You don't want to do it too soon either, you know. I have to say that once I get to the new high here, right? Well, you know, where would my stop be once I get up in here? I think at that point I would have my stop right here. So, you know, now I can start to kind of go, well, you know, if the 8 MA keeps holding up here, I'll just leave it alone. And I go, okay, now we've got a power trend, and I'm just going to leave it and see what happens. And way up here, do I need to freak out about this? No, because I've chosen it. I've already said, once you've decided it's an 8 MA, you leave it that way, right? When is the only time that I would change from an 8 MA? What is the only time where I would change from an 8 MA? Lift off, right? If this now started to do this, now this is not 8 MA anymore. Now it'll be like, all right, I got this elephant bar. I am not going to lose half of it. I'd be like, something's going on, you know. If it's been power trending, I might go big bar, and then, if the next bar is kind of like this, that's fine. But I do think that if you look at a lot of power trends, a lot of them end with a 180. So just don't get 180s. Okay, so you're not clear with pokies. Are they supposed to get out when it comes across the? No. It's if something pokes through, that is not the exit. That is the pokey. You never exit on a pokey. A pokey, once that is formed, is where you put the hard stop. So once this bar is closed, now the hard stop is anything 1 penny below that. Like if this one got 1 penny below, now you're out of the trade. In this case, it did not, so you're still in the trade. Does that make sense, Lawrence? Cool. All right, that's got to be crystal clear. Time-based stop. I believe this is the last one. This is when you get 8 to 10 bars that are just flatlining, right? Once you get to that 8th bar, now this becomes a 1 bar stop, right? So let's say you're short in a downtrend and you get all this kind of thing, and we get to bar 8. The second we get above here, right, we exit the trade, right? We just go, there's something about this, because oftentimes a little pause can be the reversal of the trend. So it might keep going down, and when it does that, it's just treated like a pivot, but it's treated like a narrow pivot. And it's important because sometimes things flatline, right? If you're in a trend, now a pause turns into a flatline. No, this is the end of the move down. And the next thing that could happen is this, and so you're out. That's it. Do I have an example of this? Yeah. Here's an example, right? So we've moved down. Here, this pivot's moved down, right? 8 to 10 bars. Once we get to 8 or so, the stop comes here and moves sideways. This one held, right? And I kept going down. And this one, once we get to bar 8, 9, 10, the stop moves to the high of all this. And right here, the trade is over. That makes sense, guys? 1 penny above the highs, I'm out. I'm like, sorry, this is the end of the trend. Notice that this one happened late in the move, right? What do we have here? Wide or narrow? So, this is why, you don't want to be in a pivot here. Like once this goes this way, we're not going to let it come all the way back up here. That's ridiculous. And, we're not going to move it to the last color. That's also ridiculous. And once it's gone sideways, this is telling you the magic's gone, right? So, the next move might be up. It likely is. Can you always get back in if it wipes it out? Sure. And it's nice because it's a low range area. You can always get back in, but that's a kind of stop adjust you can use. So sometimes plays will make a shelf. They'll start very jagged, right? Boom, and then they'll kind of do this, and then start doing that, right? And above the highs, you want to be out, right? You want to be out there. Could it not pause in a subsequent whale in the same trend? Yeah, you need to be. So if you're using a pivot stop, boom, pivot, and then this kind of goes sideways, this can get you into trouble. Like, because, you're assuming that this will happen, but I would say that is an appropriate place once you've got to new highs to start, stopping out the play, right? So, you have this one I think made it pretty clear. So think of it this way. We got from here down to the new low. Now it's going sideways. Let's say it goes up. After it's put in all these bars, what does this become? What does this area become? If this were to sell once we get above into this zone, is it easy to move through that zone? Yeah, it becomes a big support zone, and it becomes very hard for price to move through this zone. It spent all this time in here recently. There's a lot of shopping in here, window browsing, nobody liked anything, and then we started going up. Now if it comes back here, is it going to easily drop through here? Probably not, right? That zone is all buying, and buyers might be looking to buy more in this area because it's already shown that it can take off. So it has a lot more support than just like this does. That doesn't have as much support. It's a few bars. And then it tries to go up, and all it does is form an immediate 180. Nope, that's going to make a new low, right? So that's a different kind of thing. So I believe we've run through, the last one, right. The last one is this, the break-even stop. So are we good with the time stop? You guys get that 1 bar break, 8 to 10 bars, sideways, no big deal. Last one is the break-even stop, which Oliver did touch on today. Look, once you get a good lift off, you want to be able to sit through a pullback, right? And if a break-even stop is going to get you stopped out of the play for something that's still off to the races, that's not a good time to move that stop, right? So when do we use a break-even stop? Well, in this case, when we start getting up like here, for example, the gauge that I like to put is, as we start getting up here, first MLPT is going to move up to an event stop. And when we start getting up here, a 50 or 60% pullback, like let's say we're up here. This is the low of the whole move if we draw it in. So let's say we've gone this far from high to low. If the 50 to 60% zone is still above where you entered, if we entered down here and 50% is still above it and the 20 and all that other kind of stuff, then you can say, yeah, it would be ridiculous for this to get back to break even. Like, once we're up here, does this area become unthinkable for a pullback? Does that become ridiculous in terms of an amount to give back? What about right here? Is that ridiculous? Is this area ridiculous right here? Yes or no? It's not really that ridiculous, is my thought, because it could come back to here, and this would be a good area of support. But now when we start pushing away, right, and we're getting into the second leg up in here, I just start going, this should never get back down here, right? Like, is this whole trade done for the day when it gets back down here? Now I start going, yeah, it is. And so break-even stop is okay. Consequently, once you get into here, I think a color stop is appropriate. And then once we get up in here, a big bar stop adjust is appropriate. And then maybe even bar by bar, because now we're in what? Why is this maybe a close all? Where are we in the trade? What animal is that, right? And why? Right. Here's our push, small pause, second leg. When you're in whale complete, you have the choice. You have the ability to close the whole trade in whale complete. But I still, the checklist still says one lot you got to trail out with these stop adjusts. And sometimes you will have some kind of big thing that kind of does this. And that's an appropriate place to end the trade. And you're going to learn what those are. I want you to sit through and get stopped out. We want you to learn to get good at taking this, taking the loss and showing it to us, which Jan is going to show you how to journal that. Now, I am done with this part. It took an hour and a half here. Here's another one of these things, but I think the best thing to do right now is to turn it over to Jan, who's going to walk through some of your trades and go through this stop adjustment stuff as it is, right? So let us, this is a lot of information. Some of you may need to watch this several times. A number of you are watching this for the 3rd, 4th, or 10th time. But you get something new every time, right? Every time you look at this, you go, oh yeah, I wasn't really paying attention to that, or a particular detail was missed, right? So it's the repetition, right? Because you can comprehend this stuff, that does not mean that you have programmed yourself to just take those actions and to do nothing. Like, really what it is you're telling yourself to do nothing. Do nothing is what? That's you taking your ego out of the play. Unless one of these pre-written things that's also not your ego, it's something that's been decided before. So do nothing unless one of these things happens. Your job is just to identify, right? You push the button once you have identified something. And I'll argue that a lot of mistakes are that you can't track what you're doing because your ego always jumps in front of this stuff and won't let it happen. You've got to learn to take the losses and go. All right, Jan's ready. I'm handing it off.
Yes. Thank you, Tyler. 1.5 hours. Wow, new record. See how much time.
I think we did pretty well, right? All right, cheers.
Let me see if I can do 2 minutes per journal, maybe, then I'll make it. Yeah, right. Okay, so for today, thank you, Tyler. Anyway, good job as always, of course. First of all, let me try and get a screen shared. And in the meantime, let me ask you guys, how are you doing with your 20 trades, your biggest loss from 20 trades? How many trades do you have right now on your form? Oh no, my projector is not working again. What the? Sorry. Projector not working. I'm in this situation, guys. The last couple of days, everything that can go wrong is going wrong. So this is, I should just have known that this would come on top. It's like projector not working. I'll try once more, but it's not looking good. It's not looking good. Nope, forget about it. No projector. What now? What now? What are we going to do now? Let me see. Tyler, I don't think you have any time to present for me, right? Can you? Oh, that would be great if you can do that. That would be great. So we'll be starting on sheet number 30. Just in the meantime. There must be some Windows update resetting stuff or so. Or Novio update. So frustrating. Yes, right. Okay, thank you. Great. So yeah, just quick question for you guys. So already you're answering that. Okay, so people have, like Jill saying 11 trades so far on the 20 trades list. Vladimir 14, Patrick 6, Andrew 2. Okay, that's good news. So you have more than 20, Marilyn. Okay. You're not proud of your results, but Marilyn, this is not the issue, right? We're not here to make results. What we're really here is to find what was your biggest loss there so that we can learn from this. So if you can make a journal of that biggest loss in those 20 trades and you send that in for review, then we can talk about that on Wednesday and maybe learn something that will help you to get one reason of biggest losses out of the way. And so we just step by step work towards a better result in the coming month. Okay? And that is, of course, for all of you. Okay? So let's start here with a couple of quick questions. Let's get those out of the way. The first one is from Tladi. Hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Probably not, but you're probably used to it. Okay? So you quickly were asking here about how to fill in those 20 trades, and there's 3 columns in there called C, P, and T. Just ignore those columns, Tladi. It's really only about the date, the time, the stock, and the profit and loss, because the only purpose that we have at this point here is just to find out which one was the biggest loss, so that you can make a journal out of that. We can learn what the mistake was and move on. Okay? So just take those 4 columns. That should be all. All right? And actually, I think Betty had sent us a better version, but I forgot to include that. I'm sorry, Betty, but maybe next month. Thank you anyway. Okay, next sheet, please. That should be another question coming up. Oh, right, yes. Somebody sent us a couple, I think it was Jill Aiton, right? Sent us some, like the first 9 results. So you don't need to send this in, Jill. We're not going to look at this. This is for yourself. This is your own record. What you do is you just collect those 20 trades, then you find the one that is the biggest loss, and that one you make a journal. Okay, that is what you do. So so once again, you don't need to send this in. All right. Okay, perfect. Next sheet, please, Tyler. Yes, a question from Marilyn saying, I understand that we are not to place a trade in the trap zone of the open. Can we play in the trap zone after about an hour or so in reversal? For example, this morning Intel went down 40 cents and then reversed to go back up 40 cents. Okay, we're not going to look at Intel here, but let me just give you a generic answer to this. So the reason, and I don't know if you were in the self-start session, but I think Oliver also said something about it. The whole idea for the trap zone is that at the open, all we really have is the MA200 and the close from yesterday, right? The MA200, because it doesn't matter how old it is, previous day close, because that's the close from yesterday. But the MA20 has no meaning because we have the opening gap, right? I mean the time between yesterday's close and this morning's open. So the 20 needs like 10 to 20 bars before it starts to get meaning. All right. And the congestion zone, well, we put that in because that is the only price action data that we have from yesterday. Now, after 10 to 20 bars, that is usually out of the way. So at that point, the trap zone usually does not have much meaning anymore. But what you're really looking at is like a trend establishing. So you have like an impulsive move and like something like a pullback. Okay. So once you have that, and that is usually after 10 to 20 bars, the trap zone loses its meaning basically. And then all you have really is the MA200 and the MA20. Those are your points of reference instead of the trap zone, that is. Okay? Hope that clarifies this question. So we can move to the next sheet, Tyler. And we're getting to the first journal here. Right. And the first journal is by Patrick Ward. And he's trading Cisco. And actually, we have a couple of Ciscos here. The people traded took the same trade. So the other journals will come right after this one. Let's see how you did there. So the first thing is identification. You're identifying a bottoming tail bar there. In fact, it's like almost like a double bottoming tail bar, right? And it's in position plus because we have the fabulous 4 there. Then we see the bottoming tail bar, and then you're entering there above the second bar, which I think is great. 2 lots long, and your stop is roughly at 10. So we have 35 cents. You enter at 45, and your stop is at 10 roughly there. So that is like 35 cents times 2 lots is $70 in risk. $70 in risk, right? 15. Oh, you say it's at 15. Okay, fine. 15 is really close to the MA200 though. See that? The MA200 at the open is roughly at 15. So that is too close for max loss per trade, Patrick. You see that? So it really needs to be lower, like maybe 0.5 or so, for example, or 10 at the least. So you have like 35 to 40 cents risk here on your lot. And 2 lots gives you $70 to $80 really. Okay. Yes. So in this case, you could only afford 1 lot really. Yeah, that's right. So basically, you're challenging your max loss per trade here. Then you take some off. You take 1 lot off at 54.71, and that looks like a 3 pushes move to me. The first bar is like a double size bar, basically. So the first that big green bar, I think you can count that as 2 pushes, okay? And then you have another push there, and also you have like 36 cents in profits, which is a lot for a $50 stock, and especially for Cisco, I think, because Cisco is not very volatile usually. So that makes sense. And then you're trying, then you're adjusting your stop loss to break even. And you're asking, should I have moved it to break even or leave it at max loss per trade? Well, I think this is a great example of a correct break even stop. This is perfect. Why? As Tyler just pointed out, you should always take into account that a 50% pullback might occur here because we're way into this trade. There's quite a move here and a pullback seems imminent. So 50% drop is something that is very well possible. If those 50% are still clearly above your break-even stop, then it's a perfect stop to use here. You have earned the right to do so. And you're safe because if it really drops below that 50%, I'm talking 60% or even more, then there's something really wrong here and you don't want to be in the trade anymore in the first place. Okay? So this is a great, I think this is a great example of a correct break-even stop to me. Okay, so step 4, you're adding to the trade on the bottoming tail bar there in the pullback, which is a great add. Very good. However, you're adding 2 lots here. And I think that is not the right thing to do here. You should really be adding only 1 lot. Why? Now look, in the beginning of the move, you enter with 2 lots, right? And you take profits with 1. So that is really the beginning of the move. It's a big move. So now we're way up there. And now you're certainly taking a big risk here. Now you're actually adding 2 lots here. So it's almost like you're taking more risk at the top there than you did in the first leg. And that doesn't really make sense. So 1 lot is more than enough here to add. And as a general rule, traders, I would say that a good scheme to do this is like, if you can enter in a trade with 2 lots, then add 1 and possibly add another 1, okay? So the classical way to do this, and you can't do it always like this, and you don't want to do it always like this, but this is a good template to keep in your mind. Enter a trade with 2 lots, add 1 on the first RBI mandatory, add 1 lot on the first pullback mandatory. That is how you set up a trade, okay? So with 2 lots there, you're basically increasing the risk too much in a stage that's really too late in the trade, I would say. Okay, at 6, you're moving the stop up there because you say, look, I'm close to the new high. I do no longer expect a double dip. That's basically what you're saying, right? Because remember, the starter was pointing out, you need to wait until 75% of the pullback has been undone so that we don't expect a double dip anymore. So that's actually very good. I think you did a great job there. Unfortunately, as you can see, that does not always work, because what is happening after that? There is your double dip. There it is, double dip to the MA20. So you have one leg down where you added, and then there's the second leg to the MA20 that actually nicks you out, nicks you out of the trade. Yeah, that happens. There is no recipe to do these things in such a way that you always prevent any trouble, right? There's no such thing. So it is this time it didn't work. But just do this over and over again. It will work 8 out of 10 times. And so this is just one of those 2 times when it didn't work. Okay? So actually very nice trading, I think, although you started the trade a little too heavy, giving not enough room for the max loss per trade. And I think you added a little too heavily on the first pullback there. Okay? Great stuff. Next trade, please. Which is also a Cisco trade. There it is. And this is the way Hamza Raj did it. And he's not here. No, he's never here. He can never attend. He has to work. So let's say see what happens here. He actually takes the same entry here. Okay, bottoming tail bar at location plus, and he says I should have waited for green to take out red completely. I don't think so. There's no need to do that here. Look, you are in a location that is, this is the classical long location, right? This is the location where you want to take your long. So you have the position in your favor. So basically any excuse to get into the trade is good enough. Well, you have a great excuse here because you have 2 bottoming tail bars and the second one is green. So entering above the green there, I think, is the perfect entry. There's no need to wait until the red one is taken out. There's really no good reason to do that. You're just increasing the risk. If you are being stopped out, you get your penalty is heavier. And if you make it to a profit take, then you have less profits. That's really what you're doing here. Okay? And look, he takes... he adds, and then he adds actually on the takeout of the red bar, which is great. That's great. It's a great point to add there. His stop is actually above the MA200 here, about 5 to 10 pennies. I think that's okay. The MA20 is a zone, right? And I think it is safe to say that we're above the zone there. So it's okay actually to place the stop here as a vent, I would think. And I didn't really pay attention to that when we were discussing Patrick's trade, but it's something you can also look at, Patrick. So event stop, I think, is great. He has 3 lots in now, and his risk is, I would think, 20 cents or so times 3 is $60. Okay? His max loss per trade is $90. So great job. $60 risk, $90 max loss per trade. Perfect. And then he takes off 2 lots on a 3 push here. Okay, that's okay. I don't really like to do that on the first leg because remember, as Tyler pointed out, what you're really after here is a whale, right? You want to take your profits on whale complete. So that is your target. The 3 pushes are not your target. So why take off more than half? So taking off 1 lot here seems more appropriate. As far as I think. And maybe if it keeps going and it gives a lot of follow through, you may want to actually take off a second one. Okay, but immediately taking off 2 is like a signal that tells me something like you decide there that it's enough for this leg. This is enough, and you can't know that. Okay. But okay, that's just an improvement. It's not wrong what you did. Okay, it's just a suggestion that I think is a better way to do it. Now, the interesting thing is that he's also adding on the pullback. He does the same thing. However, he adds 2 lots there as well, and the same thing applies that I said before. I think adding 1 lot here is the right thing to do. 2 lots is just too much at this stage of the trade. Okay, and he gets stopped out by the same double dip. Get stopped out. Also adjust his stop on the 75% bounce, just as we teach you to do. Okay, so let this be a good lesson for everyone that there is no recipe that guarantees anything. Even though you do everything exactly according to the plan, you can still be nicked out of the trade, just like is happening here. Okay, but also great trading overall, roughly the same. And that's always nice to see that we're all applying the same plan, the same method, right? And we roughly take the same actions at the same moments. That's really nice. So we can go to the third version of Cisco, the next journal. And let's see how the next trader did it. And that is Andrew. Okay, Andrew is here as well. Andrew has a $90 max loss per trade and decides to use it here. Okay, so as we just pointed out, formally speaking, you don't have to do that. An event stop is okay here because you have enough distance to the MA200. However, you're always allowed to use your max loss per trade stop if you wanted to, of course. You can do it. Okay, so he is identifying a bottoming tail bar as well, location plus, decides to enter anticipatory here. That is mysterious to me because he's actually anticipating as the bar is red from what I can see here, unless the bar made a very strange movement. That is possible. So in general, if you anticipate on the bottom tail bar, you have to do so while it's green, okay? So not while it's still red. That is not a good idea. You really want to see the color flip, okay, Andrew? And then follow through on that color. And that is a good moment to anticipate on the bottoming tail bar. All right, then he adds one lot there. So, oh wait, two lots in the game here. Roughly at 42, I think is the entry. So with $90, so his max loss per trade is bigger than Patrick's max loss per trade, okay? You see, it's very nice to see the comparison between these three trades because there are some nuances here that I think are very good. So Patrick could not afford more than one lot because of his max loss per trade getting too close to the MA200, okay? But Andrew is using a $90 max loss per trade, so he can do it. He can buy two lots. That gives him 45 cents below is the location where his max loss per trade is, which is roughly around the whole number, around I think it's 54.00, right? And that's far enough below the MA200. Perfect. Okay, so let's move on. Andrew then says it looks like two bar in one bar to me. I agree with that. This is definitely a dual-sized bar, dual-sized elephant. So you can cut it in two. So you have like two pushes in one bar here. And then you take one off at the top there. That's perfect. You have the right to take profits after two pushes. You don't need to wait for three pushes, especially in this market, right? We're now approaching summer, and you see all the time that there is less and less follow-through. Most start, and then they just follow through a bit, and then the market stops for the rest of the day. And so it's a great idea to take one off here and then take another one off on the follow through. Do you try to see that? This is exactly what I was trying to comment on in the previous trade. In the previous trade, Hamza Raj was actually taking, was it him? I think so. He was taking off two lots at the top there in the third bar, which is fine because he waited longer before he took his profits. But then you should also be willing to look for follow through there and see what happens, right? Andrew is a little bit quicker here in taking profits, which I think is totally justified in this market and with two pushes here. But that still takes one off on the follow through to that one. This is a great way to do it. Take off one, take one more off on follow through when you get it, okay? And then look, he's also adding on the bottoming tail bar in the same location, which is very nice. Same trading here. And also at 8, I think, is he moving a stop? Yes, at 8 he's moving the stop up there. It's actually a pivot stop. You're saying time stop. It's actually a pivot stop because you just made a pivot there, right? And you get stopped out by the infamous double dip, okay? So I think the beauty of these three journals and trades is that you see that overall these three traders do the same thing here with this trade. They're sort of applying the checklist, maybe not always in the perfect way, but it comes pretty close, and it roughly gives them the same trade, which I think is very nice to see here, okay? Gurmeet is saying there is at at 7 also. Is that correct? Yes, you can do that because it's a clearing bar. Yes, absolutely. You have a pullback there, first above the bottom tail bar. That one is mandatory because it's the first pullback. Okay. Then you get actually a second opportunity, add more. That's up to you. That's optional. It's not mandatory, but you can do it. You can do it. Absolutely. Yeah. In this case, that didn't work out, but there's nothing wrong with doing that. Okay. All right. So let's go to the next journal. The next journal here is it's also for Andrew. Okay. Okay, Andrew, first of all, he's identifying the Fab4 there. And then he is saying, I see a topping tail bar. You're writing bottoming tail bar, but you mean topping tail bar, I assume. And you're shorting on confirmation there, okay? And your stop is event. And you get nicked out of this trade. No, you don't get nicked out. You actually decide to close the trade. Ooh, I noticed that it was a weak event. Okay. No, if you have your stop, so this is also an important guideline. Whenever you open a trade, you're in the trade is no longer yours. Okay, you just trail it out according to the trade management plan as presented by Tyler today. Okay, there is no more decisions like, oh, it's weak, you know what, I'll close the trade, or no things like that. Just put your stop there and just trail the trade out as you're supposed to do. Okay. In this case, that wouldn't have made a difference. However, then bear 180, you re-enter there. That's brave and that's good. That's good because you realize that you made a mistake there. You're re-entering into the trade. You even add to the trade on the GBI. That's perfect. And then unfortunately, you take profits there, 2 lots. You cover 2 lots there in step 5. In a bar that follows a green bar, right? And as you know, that is not what we do. You never take profits in a bar that is preceded by a bar with the wrong color. You always want to take profits in a bar that has the same color as the previous bar. So the next bar is the profit take bar. The bar that follows through on that big bar, that's your profit take bar. And closing the trade at the low of that big bar, of course, is even more of a no-no and that's the next guideline. So never close your trade. Totally. Always take your last lot and trail it out. Just keep adjusting that stop until your trade is being stopped out. Okay? Don't decide that it's enough. That is your ego talking. That's you taking the decisions because you think you know. Well, the truth is you don't know. So always, and honestly, guys, I almost always do that myself as well. I'll trail the trade out until the very end, until the market takes me out. I will rarely take my last lot myself, only in very excessive circumstances. Okay? All right. The nice thing about this journal is, and I hope everybody takes notice of that, is that Andrew is also pointing out what he thinks his mistakes are or where he should have, he could have done better. It's because he says, A, I should have exited my first lot here. Perfect, great observation. Although it's a little low, you probably would have taken it a little earlier. So once you see that big bar forming where you did take your profit, once that bar comes and it's done, especially when it closes at the low, use a hotkey to throw a profit take 3 or 5 pennies lower, right? Because what you want is just that little bit follow through for your first profit take. So just, for me, that's Control V. I use Control V is 5 pennies below. So I would hit Control V there and it would drop into my profit take in the next bar, okay? But great observation, and another lot there, okay, fine. And then trailing it out. Not really, the last lot, where you take the last lot out, at that point, you have a power trend because you have a lot of small bars that are basically following pretty nicely the MA8 as a railroad, right? The distance is pretty constant. So I think this is a great moment there. As soon as you discover that, somewhere halfway, those little bars, maybe the one that looks like a little bottoming tail bar or so, you say, okay, this is a power trend. Now I'm going with moving average 8, okay? And then you need a 2-bar stop rule. You need a 2-bar stop rule because with moving averages, you always use a 2-bar stop rule. Why? Because a moving average is a zone. Remember, always remember that. Never forget that. It's a zone. You cannot say my moving average was violated by 1 penny and I'm closing the trade because it's an area. So you have to deal with that. And this is why we use a 2-bar stop there. That doesn't mean that you have to allow this trade to come back like 20, 30 cents, of course, right? That's crazy. So what I usually do here is I will anchor the stop somewhere to one of the bars on the left where it's still quite far above the MA8, roughly where Tyler is drawing that line there. In this case, I would probably put it there, yeah, or maybe the bar before, above the bar before. You can put a hard stop there. Like if this thing suddenly just explodes, you'll be taken out there. But you keep adjusting that hard stop, and it's only your the thing that is being used whenever your 2-bar stop is just getting too big. Okay. But great trading here. Very nice, Andrew. Great progress. I see a lot of progress in your trading right away. I like that. Yeah, very good. Okay, next one, please. Is one by Ali. Hello, Ali. So you are trading Baidu here, which is a quite expensive stock that is also quite volatile, right? However, Ali has a max loss per trade of $200. You guys see the difference here? With $200, you have a lot more possibilities to absorb that volatility. And let's see how he uses it. So what he does, he identifies. Next in the next session, I'm going to tell you how to make a journal. And one of the important things is that you should write down what your identification event is, because we're basically applying this checklist to the journal, right? Step 1 in the checklist is identification. Okay, so in this case, identification could be bottoming tail bar, for example. Okay, bottoming tail bar at MA200, and oh, sorry, I'm overlooking it. You wrote it there. Now I see it. Hybrid bar of the MA200. Perfect, Ali. I'm sorry. Position is plus, single plus. Okay, you're anticipating in that bar. That's awesome. That's great. You have to anticipate in this bar. That's a good thing. So your risk is now $1.50. So that means that you have $150 risk, which is lower. It's less than your max loss per trade, which is $200. Excellent. Very good. Now you're adding to the trade on the hidden RBI. Okay, I think that's great. However, why didn't you do that on the previous bar? Because you also had like a hidden RBI on the previous bar. It's actually the same situation. So you could have done it there, right? I think that would have been better. With a separate stop, of course, you have to use a separate stop because you already are using $150 on your first lot. And you have to maintain this stop, right? You can only start thinking about moving that stop after you have gained earned your right to take profits. Okay, then he says step 3, profit take 3 pushes. Well, I don't see 3 pushes there. I can see 2 pushes. After your anticipatory entry, there is clearly a push up there. In the second bar, there is a push up in the third bar. So taking profits after 2 pushes, okay, I buy that. I think that's okay because look at how volatile this stock is, guys. And this is why you should be really careful playing these stocks. He's now at $1 in profits already, right? So he has $100 gain. You got to do something there. I get it. So $2, 2 pushes, $1 up in the game. That's definitely a reason to take profits. I totally agree with that. Now look what happens. It follows through, okay? And it keeps going and going. And then he says, I closed on half the drop on the exhaustion bull elephant bar. Well, first of all, we never take profits against the bar, right? So either you throw a profit take order and you let it move in there. So it moves up and you Yeah, you have your limit order and it's being filled, or you place your stop somewhere and that stop is what takes you out of the trade. Okay. Your last lot. So in this case, what I can see though is that bar became really big. So you can cut that bar in two. It is like dual size, that bar. So I can see that you move your stop up halfway and you're being stopped out there. If that is what you did, then I can agree with that, because also look, he's up there almost $2 in profits now, right? However, I think it would still be better here to use a big bar stop and give that trade room, because an exhaustion bar is usually not, let's say, the first bar after a pause. There's like a pause before there, right? And you get this big bar. Okay, that is unlikely to be an exhaustion bar. Usually there's follow through to that. That gives you the exhaustion bar. So basically what you're doing here is you see this trade go against you and you just bail out, okay? Don't be fooled by the fact that you have big profits on this trade. Of course, that's nice. And results, I'm not saying results are not important, okay? But more important than the results is, did you trade this trade according to the plan? And I think in a way you did, but there's some room for improvement. So the first add should have been on the second bar instead of the third bar, but also trailing it out here towards the high. I think you should have given it a little bit more room, the benefit of the doubt. However, I can see that you adjust the stop after the second bar against you, the second top and tail there. Then I can see, because then you have dual tails against you, okay? So I can understand that. And Gourmet is asking, can bar by bar be used before a pullback? The answer is rarely. If you have a long rally, I think this is a little borderline here. This is like 5-6 green bars in a row, right? So I think you really should think here, what is it you really want to accomplish here? Can this thing rally further? Definitely. It could have easily made a 7 or 8 bar even in this rally, because this is very powerful move up, okay? So that's definitely a possibility. So going to bar by bar there, right there, no, I don't really think that you give it enough room here. However, I can see that at some point you say, my profits are ridiculous. I just have to do something about this. And I make an exception. I'm overruling the plan here. I know I'm overruling the plan, but this is exceptional. I'm putting my stop below those double tails there. Okay, and then you're out there. A little lower than where you got out. Okay. Yeah, below the red double tail bar, I think. Yeah, something like that. Okay. All right. So let's move to the next one. By Vladimir. Vladimir is using $90 as his max loss per trade. He is pointing out the fabulous 4, and then sees a bull 180 in location plus. Yes, I agree with that. That's plus. That's plus is too high, too far above the Fab 4 for single plus. Yes, very good. Enters by 2 lots long there. So how much is his risk? The risk is roughly about $60. Is that right? Sorry, 60 pennies. Because I see his stop roughly at 70 and the entry is roughly at 30. So we have 60 cents risk here, which means that your risk in this trade, Vladimir, is actually 2 times 60 cents is at $1.20. So $120, which is more than your max loss per trade. So you could not really afford this risk, I'm afraid. Okay. So you should have ended with 1 lot here, as far as I see. Then you say 3 pushes. I take 1 off. Well, I don't see 3 pushes there. No way. I can see 1 push, 1.5 push probably. 1.5 push. The next bar is following through. That is different. Then you have 2.5 push there. So I think you're just a little too quick here in taking profits. You should really have that bar there. That's the one to take. That's where you have definitely 2 pushes, okay? Maybe 2.5. Stop adjustment break even. Aha. This is the situation that we have been talking about already. Tyler pointed it out. I pointed it out in another trade. If you get a 50% pullback here, it will nick you out of the trade, right? And you know that a pullback is imminent, it's possible. If that happens, then you're just setting a trap here for yourself. Do you see that, Vladimir? You're opening a trap here that you would just step in yourself. It will nick you out of the trade and will take off. So this is not a good break-even stop in my perception. I would just keep the stop where it is, wait for more follow-through. And as a matter of fact, what do we see there? What happens? This turns into a power trend, right? And I think you see that. But I don't see where you're actually, at what point you start to apply the moving average 8. I don't see that. However, you say I trailed it out, 8 MA break, perfect. That's good. That's excellent. That's excellent. So next time, if you can indicate at what point you started to trail out on the MA8, then that would be great. Okay, and the journal is better there. Okay. And you added in between and took off on the new high. Okay, all right. And that's a little early because that is not really that far away from the MA20 yet. Okay. So that's a little early. And you say you went MA8 after the first profit take. That's not good because for MA8, what you need here is you need a power trend. And there's no power trend after your first profit take. That's definitely not a power trend. Power trending, this thing starts to be power trending probably around 0.4. Roughly there in that area. You could talk about where exactly, but somewhere in that area, because now you have 2 RBIs, right? You have 2 RBIs. And that is, if you see 2 RBIs in a grinding trend, that's when the light bulb should go on that this is likely a power trend and it's time to start trailing the MA8. Okay? Good. Okay. Next one, please. Trying to get as many journals done as possible today. Sorry if it's a little short, but and I also tried to make sure that everybody who sent in 1 or more journals gets 1 journal covered today. Okay. Now, Andrew was lucky because somehow he ended up with 2 journals, so he was the lucky guy today. So lucky day, Andrew. Okay, Starbucks here. Betty is trading Starbucks here and starts by showing us 2 time frames and a long story on the 5-minute, entering according to the 5-minute. Okay, there is actually a great event in the 5-minute. I see it. Beautiful bottoming tail bar, entering with 3 lots there. And a stop exactly at the MA200. Why did you put your stop exactly at the MA200, Betty, if you're entering there? Are you there, Betty? Don't think she's here. Okay, if you're trading the 5-minute here and you decide to trade a bottoming tail bar off the MA200, then that is where you have to base your stop on. So you need a max loss per trade stop here, okay? Betty's max loss per trade is $130, okay, it's luxurious. So that means that with 3 lots, she has like 40 cents or so she can afford. And that brings us to roughly 50, yeah, okay, a little bit more, like 45, could do that. I think it's better to go with 2 lots here though. But okay, all right. And then she moves over to the 2-minute chart, and then things get really complicated because I see a lot of stop adjustments. 1, 2, adding there again, okay. Adding 1 more, now we have 4 lots in, then in 3, stop adjustment to the big bar. That is not another thing that the checklist is not telling you. There is no stop adjustment, Betty, before a pullback, and you know that. So I don't see where that stop adjustment in 3 is coming from in the big bar. Then number 4, you do see that it's a mistake that you're compromising the 200 there, right? And then in 936, I notice how the resistance. Now you're actually moving back to the 5 again, and including the resistance that you think is there. You You see resistance. I think that is the orange bar you drew there from 1330 on. Okay, I see it. However, if you put it, I can't really see what happened before there, so I can't really see if this is really a swing high in the 5 minute. However, what I don't like here is that, no, let me put it this way. Let me first finish the trade here. So 4 stop adjustments to the pivot. Okay, stop adjustment pivot. Is that a pivot? Well, it's only a pivot if what you saw there is a pullback, right? Is that a pullback? No, to me, this is just not enough for a pullback. There's like 1 bar missing, okay? This is more like a gift. It's just a drop into the shadow of the previous bar. I don't really see a pullback there. I do see a pullback a couple of bars later. That big red bar there is part of a pullback. That's a different story. That is a pullback. But a pullback in there, no, I don't. So I don't see a pivot stop there either, really, to be honest. And then you're actually going to number 5, with your stop adjustment, and you're out of the trade, right? So, most important thing that I want to point out here is that, wow, Betty, you're making this really complicated, and I hope you're not annoyed by me saying that. But first of all, you're trading 2 time frames simultaneously. This is really tough, okay? Even for an experienced trader. You're hopping back and forth between the 5 and the 2 minutes. You're entering on the 5, you're trading on the 2, hopping back to the 5 for a resistance, back to the 2. It's too complicated, okay? Then also, you're not applying the checklist because you're just jamming up your stop whenever you feel like it. And this checklist is very clear. Leave that stop where it is in the start, in the initial, at the beginning, right? Only move that stop up after a profit take. You can use a break-even stop if you give enough room for a 50% pullback. That's option number 1. Or number 2, you have a pullback and more than 75% of it is undone, so you do no longer expect a double dip. Then you can use a pivot stop. That's it. Okay? There is no such thing here in this. So actually, look, you also missed out on the whale, right? Because you squeezed the trade out at step 5, and you missed the pullback here. Right? And the new high. So also, while adjusting the pullback, you are really, as you point out yourself, you're ignoring the MA200 there, where it's actually your friend, and you're just completely ignoring it. So this trade requires, and I saw this when I was preparing myself, and this trade really requires proper checklist trading. And this, I wanted to give you an example on how it can be done much simpler and easier and with much bigger profits, okay? So let's move to the next journal, which is actually a journal that I just made myself, trading this in hindsight, just to show you how you can apply the checklist and do this entirely different. So first of all, I'm not going to hop back and forth to the 5 minute looking for hidden resistances and everything that I'm scared of, where I should do something. I don't do that. I do peek at the 5 minutes sometimes. I'd like to know where the 200 is in the 5 minutes, okay? But that's about it. Okay, so here, first we mark the Fab 4, right? And we see that the trade starts coming out of the Fab 4 here, actually with a double bottoming tail bar at the MA200. That's all you need, right? Now, if you look at the 5 minutes and you happen to see the bottoming tail bar, okay, beautiful, but you don't need it. You need this, right? Step number 1, I'm just entering with 2 lots here. I'm not going to make it complicated. 2 lots, event stop, because the stop is far away from the MA200, right? So we're in the trade here. We get this first push up here, right? And now we get this gift. It's actually a gift. It's not a pullback. It is not, it's not a pause. It's too deep for a pause. It's not enough for a pullback. It's just a gift, actually. It's like something in between. And above the bottoming tail bar, right? Now, because it's not a pullback, I cannot take profits there on the new high because there is no new high because I don't have a pullback. I don't have 3 pushes either, okay? So now it pulls back and it gives that big red bar. So add again on the pullback above the red bar. And look, that add is actually 75%. See that? It's at that point, 75% of that drop is undone. Also, it has taken out the biggest red bar. It's a single solid red bar. This is a strong indication that this is not going to drop anymore. Now you jam the stop up at the same time to the pivot. That is totally justified. You have your 75%, plus also, if you look at the candlesticks, it tells you that this is a low. This is not supposed to be taken out anymore. This is not going to be a double dip. Okay, and then of course, now is your new high. There it comes. Step 4, take profits. Take 2 off because we have 4 lots. Take 2 off. Then take 1 more off on the follow through in that bar, or on the bar, the next bar. That's also okay, right? And now I have a whale and a steep rally there. You have basically 2 options. You can use an MA8 here to try and see if this thing goes further, and that I did here because this was all I wanted to show you, or you use the bar by bar stop there and get out of it because you're far away, your whale is complete. See, that is basically how you can do it. Okay. This is very important. Betty's saying, Oliver looks at the 5-minute and the 15-minute and made it very complicated for me. I got completely lost. That's a very important statement, and I'm glad you're bringing that up, Betty. I have not been doing that myself for a long time, and exactly for that reason, because it gets complicated. You get a lot of conflicts, and if you have not really mastered to be able to trade this style, like I'm just showing you here in this journal, if you haven't really mastered this, where you can just do this with your eyes closed, okay, like a robot, then the 5 and the 15 are just going to bring you totally off your track, right? They're going to make your life very, very difficult. So my recommendation is don't do it. Don't do it until you have really, really mastered applying the checklist with your eyes closed, okay? And that's it. And just things become much easier. You see, all I'm doing here is I'm applying the checklist. That's all I'm doing, right? And you see it works. Beautiful whale complete. Done. Okay? Also, Betty, remember, it's not about your results. You are here because you are in a stage where you're trying to become skilled. That is totally different from making profits. They will come in the future when you have mastered these methods, right? These skills. They'll come. So don't worry about, if you get stopped out, you get stopped out. It's a little frustrating, I get it, because everybody wants to make a profit tomorrow, but it's just not the way it works, okay? So allow yourself that time to develop. Just go with it, and you see the results can be beautiful. Benjamin's saying, same here, Betty. Including other time frames and drawing out key levels has really stunned my ability to trade. Stunned meaning ruined, Benjamin? Do I read that correctly? Making it harder or better? Are you trading better with multiple time frames? Okay, it's harder, right? It's much harder. Yes, it's true. Also, I have no time really, but I let me point it out anyway, because I find this so important. Look, this is the way it works. Your emotions inside of you are strong, right? And that's normal. Everybody has those emotions. Even Oliver has them, but he has learned to deal with them, right? He still has them though. The point is that these emotions are hammering on your ego, and your ego are your thoughts, right? So your emotions are constantly hammering on your thoughts to come up with that brilliant thought that tells you that you should not be taking this trade, or that you should get out of the trade, or things like that, just so that fear gets accommodated and it's taken away, and you can relax again. You get the relief, right? And that is something that is very much the case in multiple time frame trading. You're looking at the 2 minutes, you're doubting yourself, you're looking at the I'll tell you exactly what's going on. Look at this here. You see those 2 bottoming tail bars there, right? At the MA200. Beautiful entry signal. However, the fear that you're entering in a trade and you're going to be stopped out there is telling you to look at another time frame because you don't trust the signal here, right? And if you find anything wrong in the 15 or the 5, you'll probably not take the trade. You'll skip it. You'll go somewhere else, because now your fear has become so big and you found a justification and the brilliant thought that keeps you out of this beautiful trade. That's the way it works. Don't do it. Okay, that's enough sermon for today. Exactly what happened in real time. Okay, cool. That's good to hear that. Now, go to work with this, okay? Just make your life simple and forget about all those complicated resistance levels and everything and multiple time frames. There's no need to look at that. Okay. Do we have time for another one? Hope so. I think we have. Okay. I'm glad I made your day, Letty. You just made mine as well. I like to hear this. Yeah. Okay. Michael Pagan. Hi, Michael. Max loss per trade, $80. Trading Uber here. Fab 4. Let me see the Fab 4. Your Fab 4 is a little too big for me. I see it. You took it over the last hour. Okay. I would make it a little tighter because I like to look at the last swing. Okay. You see that swing there? It's moving up at that big green bar, and it makes a high yesterday, and then it drops again, and it moves up a bit again. So that is actually, to me, the low of that green bar, maybe, or even a little higher. Yeah, like until there, roughly. I think that's enough. That's really enough there. If it breaks out there, then to me, the Fab 4 is basically broken. Okay, so entry there, one lot short. Let me see, elephant bar. You say elephant bar. It's more like a hybrid, right? It's more like a topping tail bar followed by an elephant bar. So it's like a hybrid bar, very big bar. Trap zone, confirmation entry, because you like to see it take out the trap zone, and or by waiting this long, you get violence, right? Because this bar is now dual sized. It is a full-blown topping tail bar, elephant size, and it is an elephant bar following on that. So if you cut that in half, you have like a dual sized event. Violence, right? Violence makes everything disappear. Now, actually what this means is that everything to the left is no longer relevant. The whole work that we just did with the Fab 4, everything else, just forget about it. Not important, because violence makes everything disappear. Important mantra from Oliver, okay? So entry is a great entry there. Is it in the trap zone? Yeah, maybe, but it doesn't matter because we have violence. Does everybody understand that? Violence, very important concept. Makes everything disappear. Okay, one lot short there. Let's see, you take the event stop there, perfect. And how your risk is 40 cents roughly, I think. I see that right? Yeah, 40 cents. Okay. Yeah, you could, okay, maybe you could afford 2 lots, I'm not sure. Anyway, 1 lot is perfect. So your first comment in blue, Michael likes to color up his journals by putting in blue his mistakes or errors. I like that. It's something I will point out next Wednesday to you guys when we talk about journaling. I do the same thing. I love to use blue for that because it just jumps out of the chart. So he says, I didn't realize I was still in the trap zone. So I just explained to you, no problem with that because you have violence, okay? So you don't need to wait for a trap zone anymore. It doesn't matter. Step 2, adding to the trade. 1 lot add to the trade on the bear 180. Beautiful. So now we are 2 trades in here, 2 lots in here. And then he takes profit on the follow through there on that bar, covers 1 lot. Beautiful, 2 pushes, excellent cover here. You thought you took 2 lots. You were not expecting a new low. You were not expecting a new low after this one, you mean? Okay. Well, the question is, of course, is that a pullback, what we see there? And I just said that a 2 bar is usually not a pullback, right? But this I do call a pullback. Why is that? Because the event is so strong. Because this is like the bear 180 there after the bounce makes this much more like a pullback. Okay, so so I would say you have new low here and you cover on the new low. All right. So you meant to say that for the second ad. Okay. Okay, now we're going to look. We see there a big green bar on the bounce. Okay, fat green bar. That's a really strong bar that we have there. Okay. Now you are adding there 2 lots to your trade against that big green bar. That surprises me. Weren't you? I mean, what did the green bar tell you, Michael? What did it tell you? If you see that kind of bar, look, it's 1 bar and it takes out more than half of that drop that you had just before there, those two big red bars. More than 50% are undone by one green powerful bar. Are the bulls strong or are the bulls strong? Your choice, okay? So that ad there, no, I cannot agree with that. It worked actually because it did drop and you covered one lot there, okay, fine. But you're going against strong support there, right? So I would qualify that as luck here, okay? That's luck. Okay, then the next bar is a topping tail bar. Now the situation is totally different. Look what we have there. We had that fat green bar, right? Blasting off. That bar scares me, right? I want to see, at that point, I'm not going to add to a trade there. No way. Then we see a first attempt at that bottoming tail bar that follows is a first attempt of the bears to regain control, right? But it fails and it ends as a bottoming tail bar. But now the next topping tail bar that follows is an attempt by the bulls to break the MA200 there. And look what happens. They fail miserably, leaving a big tail behind and follow through. This is a different situation. Now I can see the ad. Okay, now it's clear that the bears, no, I can't say that the bears are totally in control, but I can say that the bulls are not in control here. They're not in control of the situation because then they would have broken the MA200 now, and they can't do it. Okay, see that? So now you go for the new low because you just added here to the trade in 5 and you expect a new low now because the bears, well, the bulls are definitely not in control. Looks like the bears are in control. Go for the new low here, okay? So your profit taken 7 is a little too early in my opinion. Anyway, you're trading it out bar by bar and then you exit at 10. Yeah, that's perfect because you have now 3 legs down, right? So there is no, I can see that you say, okay, I'm getting out of the trade now. It's done. It's enough. You could have also stayed in there with one lot, of course, and see what happens. But okay, that you're free to do that. Okay. Okay. So you took profits out of fear because you were literally on a roller coaster. The stock was whipping me back and forth. Yes, right. Yeah, because it was trying to tell you what was going on and you didn't listen. That's why that happened. Okay. All right. Okay, but good lessons here, I think. Good lessons here. Great. Okay. Well, anyway, we're now 2.5 hours into the game today. Should I stop here? Should I go on? It's up to you guys. Do we have enough? Actually, I have enough because it's like 9 p.m. here. So what? 9:30 actually. Yeah. Keep going. The rest is asleep apparently, so I don't think I'll do that. What else do we have here? Oh, this we can quickly do this one from Simon. No, because Simon is not here today, so and there's not so much here. Only thing I want to say about this is that this trade is a beautiful entry off the open, right? This is fantastic. The first bar there is a beautiful elephant bar coming straight out of the trap zone, right? And he didn't take that. However, he waits for something that is not really a pullback. See that? It's like, I mean, you could argue that it's a pullback, but it's doubtful to me. This is not a pullback. So, and then he gets stopped out. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's unfortunate. I mean, it's not wrong what he did there, but look at the odds. The odds are so beautiful at the start of the morning here, so much better than they are at the point where he enters into the trade, because there the party's already half over, if not entirely over. You don't know that, but it's at least half over. Okay. So. Okay, let's quickly go to the next one then. We should be almost through, I think. Cannot be much left. Would you enter that anticipatory? Yes, probably. Yeah, probably. Trade here by Akke. Okay, I think this is the last one. Oh, that was today, right? This was a nasty one, right? Yeah, I was in that trade as well, Akke. Let's see what you did. So you entered there 2 lots long. Okay. I did the same. And and then you get stopped out. That's weird because you have a max loss per trade there. Max loss per trade. Okay, does that bring you, where does that bring you? That should bring you below the FAB4, I think. No? So? 70, well, maybe not. Anyway, what happened at 3? Why is your stop? Oh, no, I'm reading it wrong. Sorry, you get stopped out at the max loss per trade. Perfect. Okay, perfect. Then you actually decide to go short. Yes, okay. You have your event stop there above that bar in number 3, okay? And then you cover one lot on the new low. Okay. Stop to the pivot and staying there. And then at 5, you try to add again. Okay. Color stop and stop out. All right. Okay, so actually this is like a stop and reverse, right? Where is the stop and reverse is, first of all, stop and reverse is a more advanced concept in my opinion, okay? It's if you are still mastering the basics of the checklist, then forget about stop and reverse for now. That's my advice, okay? But Akka has been here for a while. So I agree with you that this is stop and reverse, but where, Akka? Where is the stop and reverse? It's very late, actually. You're quite late in the stop and reverse, in my opinion. Could you have entered earlier? Flip the trade earlier? I mean, and why? Any ideas? That was in the trap zone. Yes, that's right. However, below the 4th bar, right, the big red bar, where you have later put your event stop when on confirmation, that I think to me that is the point where you flip the trade. I'll tell you why. Bar number 1, bottoming tail bar, right? What do you expect on a bottoming tail bar like that? What's your expectation? What should the market do now if everything is okay? Follow through, right? It should follow through to the upside. Well, it doesn't. Okay, it's not happening. Instead, we're moving sideways. And then bar number 3 is a pause bar, a tiny green pause bar. What does it do at that bar? I mean, it can hesitate to follow through on the first bar, okay? That can happen. Now it actually fails even to lift off from the 3rd bar. Can't even do that. Instead, what it does is it produces a significant red bar there. Okay, that basically takes out 2/3 of your reason for this trade. So it proves that it can take out all the green. Okay, so that is the point, I think, where the stop and reverse is to be done. Okay, but this is quite advanced. I have to admit that. And then, of course, you take profits on the follow through to the new low. You add to the trade. Okay, cover. You can cover there. Well, I don't like 4 really. The cover there, I don't really like that. And the reason is that the reason is that there's no follow through to that new low. So I didn't do that here. I took my profits on the new low with the bottoming tail bar. And it was out of the trade there. Yeah, there. Adding later at 6 with color stop is not a very nice idea because the problem there is you have this big this bounce, right, with the big green bar. See that? So you're still close to that. Okay, so but this was a nasty one, and I think you handled it pretty well. But there's a little room for improvement here, I think. Okay, I gotta stop here. I'm sorry we're so rushed today, but I tried to cover as many journals as I could. Hope it was good. I'd like to invite Tony to do the last part here. Okay. All right, you're welcome, Betty. Keep it simple. KISS, right? All right. And Lali, I will talk about that in the next session in full detail. So until now, if you want to send in a journal, just make anything, okay? Make a journal. That's fine. And did I have my sound off? Oh, sorry. So if you you can just do that, but in the next session I'll cover it in full detail, and there will be no secrets left. Okay?
Hey, good job.
Sound check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Okay. High five. Great. I got to go through this kind of quick because you're already behind on time. So, to open up the Dow today, gaps down. Big, bad, bearish elephant bar down. So that tells you it's going down. Then it has follow through right here. Has follow through. Right? Keeps going down. And finally hits bottom, tries to come back up. The bears are strong. Keeps it down. And we have a bulls coming in. Looks like it wants to bounce up from this area here, this zone in here. Where it goes, nobody knows. All right, here's the NASDAQ, right? You have a nice bottoming tail from the prior day's close, right? Remember, bottoming tail needs to be 2/3, the tail needs to be 2/3 the size of the body. So this is more than 2/3 of the body. Otherwise, if it's a small wick, this is a wick and this is a tail. Know the difference. You have a bottom and tail at the open, and follow through gives you a nice bull elephant bar. After that, it rolls over, comes down. Near the prior day's close, comes back up. So it's going at an angle upwards. It's the high, rolls over a little. It's going sideways. So it's kind of dipping a little and sideways. S&P gives you a bearish elephant bar. Then a strong green bar, and then it rolls over. Gives you all these bottoming tails. Look at these bottoming tails, right? So that's kind of telling you it wants to go up. It goes up to that topping tail and comes straight down to this little tail. Sideways dips, sideways dips. Now it's rolling back up. Gives you a 180 right here. A bull 180. We're going to talk about bull 180s today. So this goes up, pulls back, keeps going up. All right. Today the market, you have Apple strong, Adobe, QCOM, Nvidia's up a little, Tesla, Amazon, it's kind of break even. The banks are down. All right, let's get right into it so I don't waste too much time on that. Okay, hello Paola. No charts. You guys, can you see my my screen sharing right now? Marilyn, you might want to refresh in the upper right hand corner, that red X. Click on that and hit the refresh button. Okay, here we go. Bulls and Bears 180s. Another tool for your toolbox. I like to teach you guys tools. And you get the basics down with the checklists and the journaling and stuff, but the tools help you become more consistent, better trader, right? You can put it all into practice. Repetition's what creates mastery of your skills. So you guys have to practice your trades. A lot of practice and journal. Journal your things. Journal your trades. Okay. So, The current bar must represent a bearish period. So this is a bearish period, right? Where it's coming down. So this price was dropping. All of a sudden, you hit bottom. Gives you a bull 180, right? Now, this bull 180 is far from the 20. Here's the 20, right? The further away from the 20, the better. The 20 is like a magnet, pulls the price, see? Pulls the price to it. When you get this far away, it's going to have follow through at least a high percentage of the time. Like 70, 80% of the time, it's going to have follow through. Many do not. So you have to be ready for that too. So this is important. Far away from the 20. This makes it a true bull or bear 180. Because you'll find a lot of them. There'll be a lot of scenarios where you'll see lots of different ones. Okay. So it works accurately in all price ranges and in all time charts, time frames, right? So it could be a $5, $10, $100 stock, or it could be 2-minute, 5-minute, 15-minute chart. It will work. We usually are working with the 2 and the 5-minute charts, right? And the price ranges, we will want to keep it like below $80, $90, $20 to $80 for you guys. So after a long period of bullish, you have a bottom and then it goes up. So as I explained earlier, these are wicks. The tails are long, longer than 2/3 longer than the body. You have tails and wicks. On a bull 180, your entry will be right above this bar, right? 1 penny above it, and your stops are right below it. Right? So this is your risk. So your risk reward, you want it to be 2 to 1 to the 20 moving average. Because these are counter trend moves. This is going with the trend as it's going down. All of a sudden it stops at its bottom, and this is a counter trend move. The bull and bear 180s are counter trend moves. So you need a 2 to 1 win ratio to have profitability, to be consistently profitable. So you're looking for it to be far away. There'll be many that are on it or above it, but they won't be as good as these. The odds are lower. So it's a counter trend, 2 to 1 win ratio, right? When you're going with the trend, it's a 1 to 1 win risk reward, right? The win ratio, if you're shorting this, then 1 to 1. But once you hit this bear 180, it needs to be 2 to 1 counter trend. But in this case, it didn't work. See, you had a real nice win ratio, a real nice bull 180, everything looked perfect, and it just didn't work. Started getting all these topping tails, and it just went down. Hit your stop, you're out. That was your risk. You lost. Next trade. No big deal. No revenge trading. Stick to your list and go to the next trade, right? Don't be thinking all kinds of things. Your psychological thinking, your ego gets in the way. All kinds of things happen. That's why these lists is ideal, because you don't have to think. You don't have to let your ego get in the way. As Jan and Tyler were talking about earlier today. Here's more examples. As you can see different scenarios, right? So this is lower odds of working, but it worked going with the trend, going down. A bear 180 on the 20. Right? So it's not a true bear 180 or not, but it worked going downwards. Right? So this is a lower odds. This is more of a clearing bar. Cleared all this. Here you didn't have the 2-to-1 win ratio. And this went up, hit bottom, and kept going. You're going to see all kinds of different scenarios. I'm going to show you some examples that happened today. These are older examples, right? So this is a bull 180, 2-to-1 win ratio, and it works. Pulls back and keeps going, right? There's another one. 5-minute chart. You have the bearish period. All of a sudden, hits bottom, turns around, bull 180, 2-to-1 win ratio, and it works. Goes up. Those are ideal. True bull 180s, far from the 20, right? Follow through and it works. 2-to-1 win ratio. A bearish period hits bottom, 2-to-1 win ratio, goes up. So which one of these are not a bull 180? This one. Well, it is. Well, it's more of a clearing bar. It's too close to the 20, but it works and it keeps going, right? This one clears everything to the left, close to the 20, and goes sideways. Doesn't really work. So here's a bear 180, right? It's far from the 20. Has follow through, 2-to-1 win ratio, and it works and keeps going, pulls back, keeps going, pulls back. Gives you a bull 180, and it keeps dropping. So this one worked real good, going down. Here's a bull 180, 2-to-1 win ratio. Oh, this one did not work. Yeah, I just went over these. I'll have to change those charts. Okay, this is just a red bar takeout, right? Clears all this to the left, and pull back to the 20, and keeps going up. It's not a bull 180 because no 2-to-1 win ratio, right? The bearish period, bottom, but it's too close to the 20. This bar is just clearing this out. Goes back and then takes off. Here's a bull 180, but it's above the 20. Right? On the 8 trains, right in the 8 train now. Oops. Okay. Here's one that works. Small follow through, not always be big profits, right? So you're looking for base hits, right? A base hit or a double. You're not necessarily going to get a home run all the time. So if you get a base hit or a double, you're doing good. Second. Give me 1 second here. I gotta get out of a trade. And it's not quite there. Okay. There's another bull 180, right? Far from the 20. This one has nice little follow through. Nice base hit. Another base hit there. So here's a bear 180 off the 200 moving average. You have a 2-to-1 win ratio. Works great because you have 5 bars down, right? So here you have 2, 3, 4, 5 pushes down. Whew, great trade. Here's a bull 180, bar from the 20, 2-to-1 win ratio. This one works. Follows through, goes up, then it goes sideways for a long period, and it goes up. Okay, little review. Bull and bear 180s, far from the 20 are the better ones. The true bull and bear 180s are far from the 20, right? They're counter trends, and you should have a 2-to-1 win ratio. Your risk reward needs to be 2-to-1 because they're counter trends. They're a little more difficult. Going with the trade is a 1-to-1 win ratio. So these work with small follow through. Look for base hits. Will not always be home run profits, you know. So look for base hits or double, and you will see different scenarios. You can have all kinds of things appear. They will not work. They won't follow through. They hit your stop, and you're out. You need to know when you see a bear 180, if it's a true bull and bear 180, you have higher odds and probabilities that it will work. If not, then you have much lower odds. But sometimes they work. So you'll see different scenarios, right? So repetition is what creates mastery of your skills. Practice, 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 and journal with bulls and bear 180. You'll become experts at them. To help you build your skills higher in small steps, right? You got to build your skills. That's the goal, because you get the knowledge from us and you practice a lot. You get your experience, and the two of them give you your skill, increase your skill levels, and you take small steps up your skill ladder, up the stairway. So let me pull this up and get this ready. I want to show you a couple more trades that happened today. Okay. All right, here we go. ServiceNow. Oops. This thing has a nice move up this morning. It's a topping tail and then rolls over, comes all the way back down. So it hits a bottom in here and gives you like a bull 180. Far from the 20? Well, not that far. But this bar was kind of big. So you might want to take it, put your stop there, take it, it goes up, gives you another bull 180, keeps going up, pulls back, ribby, ribby, ribby. You guys should be really good at ribbies. So you hit this topping tail up here. This is the big flag on top of the hill saying, get out, get out. It talks to you. It talks to me and says, get out, get out. Let's see. Oh, give me 1 second here. Let's see. We'll bull 180 down here. Right? Far from the, here's the 20. Far from the 20, you have 2-to-1 win ratio easily. You have a little break, a little pause, and it continues up. This would have been a great Ferrari, the race team, the Ferrari cars. Let's see. Wrap technology goes back to this area, gives you a bull 180, has a nice follow through, goes sideways and keeps going up. Here's another one, pulls back to the VWAP, bull 180, 2-to-1 win ratio is pretty close. Has follow through. Top and tail, get out. Right? Nice base hits right there. Solid trades. Here's a bear 180, right? Right off the 20 moving average. So you don't have a 2-to-1 win ratio, so you have lower odds here. You know it's lower odds because you're going to see different scenarios, right? So I'm trying to show you different scenarios that happened today. So this thing just goes down. Look at it. It was so good. Gives you a Gibby, right? Green bar ignore keeps going down. Another Gibby, keeps going down. Look at this incredible run down. Pull back, keeps going down. Thing went way down. That would have been a great trade if I only saw it in time. Uber, look at this. Comes out with a big bearish bar and then gives you a bull 180 and follow through. Pulls back, goes up, pulls back, goes up, pulls back. It's right in the A train now. Pulls back after it rolls over for the morning. Gives you another bull 180 here, but you don't have the 2-to-1 win ratio. But this scenario worked. Right? Little pullback keeps going up. Here you have a bearish 180. Right? And it's all red bars going down after that. Nice follow through. The 20 is down here, so you have the 2-to-1 win ratio. So you have a higher odds that this will work. And it's working. This is a game of odds and probability. Right? So this one's working for you. Pulls back, keeps going down, and you're out. Here's a bear 180 coming down. The 20 is down here, not quite 2-to-1, but it works. Follow through, gives you a bull 180 at the bottom. This is far away from the 20, so it works. Pulls back, keeps going up, right? So these are different scenarios you're going to see. This stock gives you a bear bar, and then a green bar goes up, and then gives you a bull 180. So you're kind of far from the 20. It's barely a 2-to-1, right? And it follows through and goes down, pulls back, drops, gibbies, pull back, gibbies, keeps going down. All the way down here. After the bearish period, you hit bottom and bounces up. And then follow through. It's like a bear 180 or red bar takeout or clearing bar. All those things goes up, pulls back, comes back up, flat, top and tail, you're done. This one has a nice roadblock, has a nice trend downwards, and it's down, down, down. It's a bottom here, this whole number, and bounces up. 2-to-1 win ratio, nice bull. 180, comes up, gives you a nice ribby, keeps going up. And this ribby you can add. As it follows through and moves up, then you move your stop, right? Then you can get out. This double tails up here, you can get out. Nice, that's like a double here. Nice double hit. Double base hit, right? Here's a bull 180. I'm trying to show you stocks that are low price too in your ranges. A bull 180, but the 20 is right on top of it. So I don't know if I would do that one, right? Lower odds, much lower odds. Had a little follow through, but then rolls over. Boom, gives you another one. This one is a little further from the 20. This has better odds of it working. You might want to take this one, and it has followed through and goes up. A nice base hit right here. Here's the topping tail telling you get out. All right. This one has a bull 180 at the open after the first bearish bar, then gives you a bull 180 right off the 200 moving average prior to his close. Just shoots right up, right? Goes sideways, topping tails, pulls back. Doesn't really work. It's going sideways, sideways, pulling back. Then it decides, I'm kind of going to work. breaks out here. It's like a bull 180 on the 20. Rolls over below the 20, another bull 180. Then it finally decides to work. All right, gives you a ribby and goes up. Top and tail, you're out. Gotta learn to read these charts like you read a book. All right, a bull 180. After a bearish period, looks like a bottom. Not quite 2-to-1 win ratio, but it's close. Take a shot at it. Put your stop right here and go. Ribby, it's working. Pull back, it's working. Goes back to the 20 and keeps working. Another bear 180 right here. Bull 180. Keeps going all the way. So this one was a nice hit here. They're not all going to be perfect. They're different scenarios, right? There's a bear 180. Drops down, follow through. A Gibby. Drops down, Gibby, pull back. Bottoming tail, you're out. This would have been a nice triple. Double, triple base hit. Apple this morning, as Tyler was talking about earlier, at the open gives you a bear bar, a little green bar, another bear bar. Off the 200 moving average, all of a sudden gives you a bull 180. And then it just takes off from there, right? The 20 is here, so it's a low odds, but since it's a power surge off the 200 moving average, it just took off. Look at that. No red bars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 green bars up, and 5 nice size green bars. If you look at the size of all the bars previously, they're small. But these green bars up were pretty big. So that's power. That's a lot of bull action going on here. Pulls back, another bull elephant bar, bigger than these, but then it just rolls over, all right? So you would have to get out in this area up here. All right, so I try to go fast so that we can get this done. Let's see if we can get a couple questions here. Can we get a bull 180 close to the 20 in case of a pivot? You can, you can get it close to 20, but remember it's going to be a lower odds of it working. The bulls and bear 180s need to be far from the 20 to have the better probabilities of it working correctly. I saw some reference to bull 180 trends also today. At the okay. Does a bull 180 have to be a certain size bar? No, they don't have to be a certain size bar. You saw a couple examples. I showed some real small bars that were bull 180s, or big bars that were bull 180s. Doesn't really matter as long as it's like a far from the 20. Then you're good. The odds are higher. So, those are good questions. I hope you guys can remember. That's why I like to repeat things, because it takes time to remember all this stuff. It took me a long time. I went to all of Oliver's classes and the manual, went to the classes of the manual over and over and over, and it helped me a lot to repeat things. Do tails or wicks matter in the bulls and bears 180? Not really. You don't really, the tails don't come into play. You see more of the bars itself, All right, looks like the market just closed. So I'll look at my post-market action here. I like to see what's going on before and after the market at times I play. It's not for you guys, but for me, I will dabble in it sometimes. Okay, I think it's over. We went over the time. Thank you, Paula, for staying so late with us today. And I think Jan had to go. And Tyler probably had to go. So I'm going to give us all a big hand of
Hey, good job.
applause. Give us a good shot, a good job. And a nice shot out for everybody out there. I hope you guys can remember your Bulls and Bears 180s. You can remember your ribbies and gibbies that I taught you. Next class, I think I'll do some pullbacks. I'll show you guys how to handle pullbacks. So, with that said, I have to conclude this class. I went over 3 hours and 13 minutes, so it was a long one. Thank you for hanging in there with us. I'll have to stop the recording.